What's a quote from a fictional character that changed your life? We accept the love we think we deserve. I think that if I ever have kids and they're upset, I won't tell them that there are people starving in China or anything like that, because it wouldn't change the fact that they were upset. And even if somebody else has it much worse, that doesn't really change the fact that you have what you have. That's from The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I don't know if I'm being cliché. Nothing worth having is easy to come by. Dr. Robert Kelso. A boy who idealizes war is perplexed why a war hero wants to retire to become a farmer. He asks the wise warrior why he seems to despise war, and this is the warrior's response. There is more honor in a field well plowed than one steeped in blood. Many of the truths we cling to depend largely on your point of view. Ben Kenobi. I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me. Joshua Graham in Fallout New Vegas. I think one that resonates with me is when Captain Vimes says about his alcoholism, "One's too many, two's not enough." And that's when I knew that cutting down wouldn't work. I'd have to completely stop. I've been sober nearly 5 years now. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That's not weakness, that's life. Jean-Luc Picard. Tomorrow's the day you'll pay the bills. Tomorrow's the day you'll grow up and start acting responsible. But tomorrow never comes for you because it's always so conveniently a day away. I think this came from Susie in Hey Arnold. I had to copy-paste because I forgot the original quote verbatim, but the "tomorrow never comes" part will always stick with me despite me being a massive procrastinator. You can't keep blaming yourself. Just blame yourself once and move on. Homer Simpson, one of the wisest pieces of advice I've ever heard. Homer really does have his moments of brilliance in the show, and you have to look at the fact that despite his sheer idiocy, he's managed to strike up a work-life balance that has largely made him happy. He has just enough to provide for himself and his family, and has his main priority, making sure his loved ones come before him. I of course am referring to the good Simpsons seasons, not the later ones where he turns into a selfish moron 24/7. I'd trade it all for a little more, C. Montgomery Burns. I saw some of my friends become big, and they don't even answer calls and don't have an honest reply for a question. I remember this quote, and it's incredible. Friends, family, religion. These are the 3 demons you must slay if you wish to succeed in business. Mr. Burns may well just be a caricature of certain rich people, but at least he wears it on his sleeve and doesn't hide behind false virtue. The hero decides to give their life to save the day, and because of their sacrifice, the good guys win. The survivors all cheer, and everybody lives happily ever after. But the hero never gets to see that ending. They'll never know if their sacrifice actually made a difference. They'll never know if the day was really saved. In the end, they just have to have faith. Ain't that a witch? Epsilon from Red vs. Blue. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. Winnie the Pooh. I'm a grown man, and reading the end of the House of Pooh Corner left me feeling a kind of way I can't even describe. You know, it's at times like this, when I'm trapped in an airlock with a man from Beetlejuice and about to die of asphyxiation in deep space, that I really wish I'd listened to what my mother told me when I was young. Why? What did she tell you? Oh, I don't know. I didn't listen. Said by Arthur Dent. I think Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has so many gems. I can't recall the exact words, but I think the definition of flight is the best quote of anything I've read. In order to accomplish flight, simply throw yourself at the ground and miss. I'm a quitter. I come from a long line of quitters. It's amazing I'm here at all. Bernard Black from Black Books. Some people will always need help, but that doesn't mean they're not worth helping. Mira Reed from Game of Thrones. There are no choices. Nothing but a straight line. The illusion comes afterwards when you ask, why me, and what if? When you look back and see the branches, like a pruned bonsai tree, or forked lightning. If you'd done something differently, it wouldn't be you. It would be someone else looking back, asking a different set of questions. Max Payne, in Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. Personal isn't the same as important. This is said by both Captain Carrot and Granny Weatherwax in the Discworld books by Terry Pratchett. I mean, Sir Terry Pratchett's books have too many of these to count, so here's a few of the best. There is no justice. There's just us. There's no greys, only white that's got grubby. I'm surprised you don't know that. And sin, young man, is when you treat people as things, including yourself. That's what sin is. It's a lot more complicated than that. No, it ain't. When people say things is a lot more complicated than that, they means they're getting worried that they won't like the truth. People as things. That's where it starts. Patronizing is a big word. Zoology is really quite short. Are you listening? Good. Now, if you trust in yourself and believe in your dreams and follow your star, you'll still be beaten by people who spent their time working hard and learning things and weren't so lazy. Goodbye. Them as can do has to do for them as can't, and someone has to speak up for them as has no voices. And of course, the reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which was sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, they cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots that Vimes always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in the city on foggy nights by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that would still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. This was the Captain Samuel Vimes' boots theory of socio-economic unfairness. The best part about that being that he eventually gets a really good pair of leather boots, but hates them because the soles are so good that he can't feel where he is in the city with them. We live with dignity, we can't die with it. Dr. Gregory House. Time is an illusion, doubly so. It's real life, and in real life, you can't always win, said Gerald in Hey Arnold. This reminds me of a great and very real quote about parenting from the excellent show Ted Lasso. His mother reminds him when he's having a tough time knowing if he's raising his son right that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but most of the time you just tie. You just keep playing. In other news, when the narrator was 6 years old and dumb, he really didn't like Hey Arnold. I feel like I would have appreciated it a lot more if I were a couple of years older when it was airing. And someday, you're going to look around and realize that everybody loves you, but nobody likes you. And that's the loneliest feeling in the world. BoJack Horseman. I don't know how many years I got left on this earth, so I'm going to get real weird with it. Everybody's favorite degenerate on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Get busy living or get busy dying. Andy Dufresne, The Shawshank Redemption. I expect nothing and I'm still let down. Dewey, Malcolm in the Middle. It's like those lights in the sky. They all look the same from here, but that doesn't make them less pretty. River Wiles.
This is my family. I found it all on my own. It's a little broken, but still good. Yeah, still good.
Stitch. Although that would compete in that film with
Ohana means family. A family means no one gets left behind or forgotten.
A person's smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. Agent K, Men in Black. Be loyal to what matters. Arthur Morgan. I remember thinking before the game was launched, this guy seems like a total jerk. There's no way Rockstar can make him a more likable character than Marston. Now that I've had a few months to stew on it, I honestly think he might be my favorite video game character of all time. Probably top 5 protagonists in all fiction. The BoJack Horseman quote that I always remember was the jogging baboon. It gets easier. Every day it gets a little easier. But you've got to do it every day. That's the hard part. But it does get easier. The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. Everyone always has a story they tell themselves to justify bad decisions. It never matters. You're always alone in your actions. Hawk from Dragon Age Inquisition. A wise man can learn more from his enemies than a fool from his friends. Rush. People like to invent monsters and monstrosities, then they seem less monstrous themselves. When they get blind drunk, cheat, steal, beat their wives, starve an old woman, when they kill a trapped fox with an axe or riddle the last existing unicorn with arrows, they like to think that the Bane entering cottages at daybreak is more monstrous than they are. They feel better then. They find it easier to live. Geralt of Rivia, The Last Wish. Not everything's a lesson. Sometimes you just fail. Dwight K. Schrute. The K does not stand for fart, by the way. Sucking at something is the first step to being sorta good at something. Jake the Dog. You can handle anything for 10 seconds. Kimmy Schmidt. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Losing people is a part of life, but that doesn't mean you stop letting them in. Lego Batman. That movie came out shortly after I lost my grandpa. He was one of 2 people I was closest with. When he died, I went through a really rough phase. Ever since I heard that phrase, it stuck with me.
Today me will live in the moment, unless it's unpleasant, in which case me will eat a cookie.
Cookie Monster. I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. Andrew Bernard, aka the Nard Dog. This quote actually made my friends start saying, "This is the good old days, guys," whenever it's just a really nice moment and there's a lull. I love it so much. Better to serve a good man than to rule with an evil one. Merlin. That quote has stuck with me for so long, and I have thought about it many times. Well, this is probably a more healthy take than the saying, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven," which, if you put aside the religious aspect, does imply that power is preferable to being good to each other, and screw that.
Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment.
Gandalf, Lord of the Rings.
When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all.
God on Futurama. Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something. Wesley and the Princess Bride.
Never half-ass 2 things. Whole-ass 1 thing.
Confidence. It's the food of the wise man, but the liquor of the fool. Vikram in The Office.
Pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame.
Uncle Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
What's the most important step a man can take? Always the next step.
Dalinar Colin.
There's no geographical solution to a spiritual problem.
Tony Soprano replying to someone who wanted to get away from it all.
If you want to know what a man's like, judge him on the way he treats his inferiors, not his equals, said Sirius Black.
It always really stuck with me because I think that's really solid advice.
Oh, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it.
Rafiki in The Lion King.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it'll beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Rocky Balboa.
An old friend once told me something that gave me great comfort. Something he'd read. He said that Mozart, Beethoven, and Chopin never died. They simply became music.
Dr. Robert Ford in Westworld.
It's important to draw wisdom from different places. If you take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale.
Uncle Iroh once again.
Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you.
Tyrion Lannister. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Samwise Gamgee is the friend we all need. And although it's less inspiring in the moment, this other one is, if anything, more profound. By all rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had a lot of chances of turning back, only they didn't. Because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? That there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting for. That thing gets me every time.
The problem's not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. Jack Sparrow.
The best answer is usually the easiest one. And I'll be honest, killing you is hard.
GLaDOS. Taking your own life? Interesting expression. Taking it from who? Once it's over, it's not you who'll miss it. Your own death is something that happens to everyone else. Your life is not your own. Keep your hands off it. Sherlock in the BBC. That quote was like a punch to the gut. Thor's mum, Frigga, in Endgame, when she says, "Everyone fails at who they're supposed to be. The measure of a person, a hero, is how they succeed at being who they are." One is never alone with a rubber duck. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I take this one to heart and have a rubber duck with me almost anywhere I go.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It's what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Mewtwo, Pokemon, the first movie. Oh boy, I didn't think that the bloody Pokemon movie would have any sort of resonance to anyone 30 years later, but there you go, a genetically cloned psychic cat spitting truths. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I'll face my fear. I'll permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it has gone past me, I'll turn to see fear's path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Maud Deeb.
You can't give that to her, she screamed. It's not safe.
It's a sword, said the Hogfather. They're not meant to be safe.
She's a child, shouted Crumley.
It's educational.
What if she cuts herself?
That will be an important lesson.
The Hogfather by Terry Pratchett, in which death takes on the role of a Santa Claus-like figure in that universe for one night.
Anyone can wear the mask. You could wear the mask. If you didn't know that before, I hope you do now. Miles Morales. Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Said by Mordin Solus in Mass Effect 3.
The Mass Effect trilogy is my favorite series in gaming. I still remember my first playthrough, keeping Rex alive, sacrificing Kaiden, trying to negotiate with the Council, planting the memorial on the crashed Normandy site, keeping everyone alive during the impossible mission, finally resolving the Geth-Quarian conflict, seeing Jack look after her own crew, but nothing made me stop, pause the game, and put the controller down like this moment with Mordin Solus. While not my favorite of the crew, that goes to my boy Legion. You do have a soul, my Geth friend. He, like myself, like Legion, was willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good of the galaxy and correct the mistakes of the past. You're right, Mordin. It had to be you. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Thank you.
Dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice of what is right and what is easy. Albus Dumbledore, Harry Potter.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. Ferris Bueller. How much can a crown be worth when a crow can dine upon a king? Jaime Lannister.
What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? Parthenax.
It's funny, when you look at somebody through rose-colored glasses, all of the red flags just look like flags. Wanda from BoJack Horseman. In the beginning, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad move. Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
Yondu Udonta, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. We accept the love we think we deserve, said by Charlie's teacher in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Death is lighter than a feather, duty heavier than a mountain. Alan Mandragoran. And remember, bad times are just times that are bad. Katrina from Animal Crossing.
Knowledge, like air, is vital to life. No one should be denied it. V for Vendetta.
Always try to be nice and never fail to be kind. The Doctor. Capaldi killed it with the delivery of so many lines. I don't know if it's just the words or how he said it, but I've kept it as something I try to do in life. Also, the line where he's trying to talk down a war on Earth. Something along the lines of, "And what do you do with that pain? You hold it tight until it burns, and you vow that no one should ever feel this way." Everyone I've cared for has either died or left me. Everyone, freaking except for you. So don't tell me I'd be safer with somebody else, because the truth is, I'd just be more scared. Ellie in The Last of Us. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Malcolm Merlin. In The Last Jedi, Yoda said,
"The greatest teacher failure is."
He always has the best lines.
I was so scared of becoming my father, mostly because I never thought I could. I mean, how can you become someone so great, so selfless? I guess you can only try. I spent so long fighting for a world I wanted, didn't realize what you needed.
Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. Every man dies, but not every man really lives. William Wallace, not to be confused with Wallace and Gromit. By experiencing both victory and defeat, running away and shedding tears, a man will become a man. It's okay to cry, but you have to move on. Shanks in One Piece. How have you traumatized your parents? Here's my story. It begins far away from my parents, deep in the woods. I was 18 years old. As summer came to a close, I went on a week-long hiking trip with my girlfriend. We went off the grid, many miles from civilization. There were no designated campsites, running water, etc. We were roughing it. Being young and randy, we wanted to have our share of fun adult times. So I bought a sizable stash of prophylactics. Of course, there were no garbage cans in the middle of the woods. When the deed was done, I had to put the used wang covers into a Ziploc baggie in my backpack. By the end of our week in the sweltering August sun, the baggie was full and funky. The trip went well. I returned to my parents' house exactly one day before I had to leave for my sophomore year at college. I was also a ridiculous slob. So, using my patented packing style, I hastily dumped my backpack's contents into my bedroom closet, picked through the mess, took what I needed, and left the rest. Yeah, I forgot about the baggie. But someone else found it. No, not my parents, my dog. Basically, my parents came home one day to find used prophylactics spread all over the living room. Yeah. Apparently my dog had found the baggie, but he didn't just sniff it or eat it on the spot or whatever. No, he took it downstairs and spread my week-old rubbers and splooge all over the couch and carpet in the living room. The first room you see when you enter the house. Welcome home, Mum and Dad. They didn't tell me about it for years to spare me the embarrassment. When my dad finally did tell me, he was laughing his butt off. But my mother was apparently not pleased. In conclusion, my childhood dog spread my used rubbers all over my parents' living room. When I was in 8th grade, I was staying the night at my friend's house, and it so happened that one of my favorite movies, A Christmas Story, was going to be playing on TBS. My family didn't have cable, and I knew everyone would enjoy watching it on Christmas at my house, so I asked my buddy if we could record it onto VHS so I could take it home. He grabbed a blank tape from his dad's office, popped it in the VCR, and we recorded Ralphie and his Christmas shenanigans. The following day, I went home and told my parents and siblings that I had a copy of the movie. They were ecstatic, and we all agreed to watch it the following week on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve rolls around, and my parents, brothers, about 5 and 8 years old, sister, 7 years old, and myself gather around the TV to watch the movie. I rewind the tape to the beginning and press play. For the next 3 seconds, although it felt like an hour, my entire family and I watched a woman sucking a large male organ before it quickly cut to A Christmas Story. We'd obviously taped over one of my friend's dad's adult flick tapes. Nobody flinched. I looked at my parents, who had these bizarre frozen smiles as if nothing had happened, and everything was right with the world. My brother and sister continued watching the TV but had looks of bewilderment on their faces as they tried to process what they'd seen while simultaneously trying to enjoy the beginnings of A Christmas Story. Nobody in my family has ever mentioned this event. I'm 30 years old now, and A Christmas Story is no longer part of our family Christmas tradition. Oh, sweet Lord, we've missed out on many great awkward family moments now that the age of the cassette tape has been and gone. We shall miss you, Old Faithful. When I was 15, I was just constantly in the mood all the time. I'd also never seen a male member other than my own or in an adult flick. These two things are important. So I have my group of friends, and one of my friends, who we'll call D, had older, cooler brothers. So they would get us adult flicks and we would trade with each other every so often. After a while, I had a collection of about 8 or 9 skin flicks, all VHS, hidden in a garment bag which contained a suit I never wore in my closet. I also had acquired a male enlarging pump. I know, laugh it up. Honestly, I thought it was small by comparison, but it was the kind that has a long cylinder and squeeze pump. This was also hidden in the garment bag along with rubbers and cigars. I just knew it was a genius hiding spot. Incorrecto. Come home from school one day with everything that was in the garment bag on the kitchen counter. Super busted, and my mum is freaking the frick out over the enlarging pump. It was like she'd found a severed head or something. She was mortified. She yells at me and says, "Wait till I tell your dad," and sends me up to my room. My dad comes home. I hear them talking, then I hear him ascending the stairs. I'm terrified. He opens the door with the biggest grin on his face, tells me not to worry about it, gives me my rubbers back, but says we have to throw the tapes and pump away. But he put them in a bag and put them on top of the garbage so I could retrieve them, and told me it was nothing, that I was a teenage boy and that my mum would never understand. My mum thought I was the devil, though. When we were about 5 or 7 years old, me and my brother discovered the similarities between ketchup and blood. Mum wasn't home yet, so we got some knives from the kitchen, all the ketchup we could find, cut some holes in our shirts for the knives, and staged a huge crime scene in the living room. We loved secretly watching the thrillers our parents used to see in the evenings from the living room door when we were believed to be in our beds, so we had some experience with a plausible scenario and put a lot of thought into it, creating a huge battle scene with blood on the walls, the couches, and of course, lots of ketchup on our motionless bodies in the center of the room. Mum kind of had a breakdown. You were a fricked up child. So when I was 16, I found out that who I thought was my dad was actually just my stepdad and not my real dad. Well, a sister I never knew about contacted me, and it turns out my real dad lived in a small town just 8 miles away from mine. Well, I met my sister and had her come over one day while my mum was at work. My mum came home early, and when I introduced my sister, I introduced her as my girlfriend. The look on my mum's face was priceless. That is beautifully evil. I was around 14 and was pretty depressed, so my parents were on guard. One day I woke up early with a runny nose, but being tired, I just went back to sleep. A few hours later, my mum is panicking as she wakes me up. My face was covered in blood due to a bloody nose, and I looked like a corpse. I sneezed when I had a bloody nose once during the night, so there was blood splattered on my wall and pillow with blood all over at noon, while I was sleeping pretty heavily when my mum came to wake me up. I woke up because of the loud screaming going on in my room and scared the entire family by accident. When I was about 8 years old, I was going through our medicine cabinet like the little rascal I was and found one of my brother's old EpiPens, the epinephrine injector for use during a severe allergic reaction. I was curious about how it worked and figured it was like any other pin in that you clicked the top of your thumb and the needle came out the other end. Turns out the needle comes out of the end that you click, and it ended up going right into my thumb. When my parents came upon me screaming my lungs out in the bathroom, the walls were painted with blood that I'd sprayed around getting the pen out of my thumb. Apparently, it was pretty grisly. Haha, my brother did exactly the same thing with my EpiPen when he was like 11-ish, in the middle of a church service. The image of a screaming child spraying blood all over the congregation is just too gosh darn funny. I love it. I was young enough that I took supervised baths. My mum stepped out of the bathroom for just a few seconds, and I thought it would be super funny to sink to the bottom and lie motionless. Mum didn't think it was nearly as funny when she came back in. Similarly, I was young enough to take supervised baths and was exhausted at the time. My mum stepped out and I instantly fell asleep, with my face in the water. I was dreaming and I knew it was hard to breathe. My mum came in screaming my name and my head shot up, slamming into the faucet. I was fine, but she put me to bed instantly. To this day, we don't know why, but toddler me decided one night to get out of bed, grab my toy hammer, walk to my parents' room, round the bed, and smack my sleeping dad in the face before dropping the hammer and returning to bed. He's still jumpy in his sleep. I fell out of a moving car when I was 6. Luckily, I was in a car seat and landed in grass. How does this happen? One word: Jeeps. For some context, when I was about 7, I lost my cat. He just disappeared one day. Probably coyotes. But his favorite thing to do was sleep in my mum's bathroom sink. Also, my neighborhood is infested with cats because someone down the street never got hers fixed. So now for the real story. I was swinging on my porch swing, looking over into the bushes and saw a cat. It was laying down, eyes closed, mouth open. No wounds as far as I could see. It looked asleep. But it looked sick too. So to make it feel better, I picked the dead cat up, took it inside and placed it in the bathroom sink. Plus, I was feeling really lonely after my first cat disappeared. I thought my mum would let me keep this one. In conclusion, my mum walked in on me petting a dead cat I'd placed in the bathroom sink. I find this morbidly adorable. A child with little understanding of the concept of death, attempting to tend to an animal's corpse. I think that definitely would have left a mark on me as a parent, though. I think that I'd be more moved than traumatized. My mum got my sister and I our first set of makeup when we were 11 and 15, respectively. We ran to the bathrooms to try and figure it out and immediately decided that the best course of action was to paint bruises and wounds all over our faces. Fake fight sounds and screaming, then run to our mother's office area appearing like we needed to go to the hospital. It worked. She turned about as white as a sheet and screamed before we collapsed into laughter. We weren't allowed to have makeup again until we were adults and bought it for ourselves. I haven't, but my little sister used to hold her breath when she threw a fit. Used to scare my mum to death. My dad said, she'll start breathing when she passes out. My daughter threatened me with this. I looked at her with a bored look until she went down. I didn't catch her or anything. She came to and realized Daddy wasn't being bullied. The first movie I saw with my ex was Knocked Up. At the time there was awkwardness because we'd accidentally had unprotected fun the week before. It turned into a big joke between us and I bought her the movie for Christmas. Mum asked me, "What did you get Jen for Christmas?" And without hesitating or thinking, I said, "Knocked up." She was driving and almost wrecked the car. This happened the summer after my senior year of high school. After a long night of drinking, I came home and apparently felt the desire to spew. My parents live on the 3rd floor. I live on the 2nd and have a bathroom on my floor. For some reason, I turned the fan on when I went into the bathroom, which is kind of loud, and my parents' room is pretty much right above the bathroom. So I spewed hard, mostly in the toilet at first. I got hot and really sweaty when I'm spewing, so naturally I stripped down to my boxers. I then somehow managed to spew all over myself. Well, that's unacceptable to drunk me, so I decided to take a shower to clean up. Never managed to turn the water on. Next thing I know, I'm getting woken up by my mother screaming bloody murder, crying profusely. Apparently, I passed out in the tub. The fan woke up my mother in the middle of the night, so she came to investigate and found me barely dressed, covered in my own spew, passed out in the bathtub with, as she says, my eyes rolling in the back of my head. She thought I was dead. I would say that was a bit traumatizing for her. In conclusion, my mum found me passed out, covered in my own spew in the bathtub, and thought I was dead. I should note for our listeners that even saying the more commonly accepted and medically correct terms for spew can get us in trouble with YouTube, which is why I had to say spew so many times instead. Spew. When I was in kindergarten, I made a friend while at school. We really hit it off, and she said she had a big bag of Halloween candy at home and offered to share it with me. It was a fairly short walk to her place from school, and from her place a short little walk home. So I head over to her place and completely forget to tell my parents where I went after school. I completely lose track of time. We ate candy and played video games. Her family must have thought my parents knew where I was. We played board games and ate dinner, and I didn't go home until after 9. I remember getting home, walking through the front door and being greeted by the sight of my parents, both completely in tears, on the phone with the police. I immediately realized what I did wrong, and I thought for sure I was going to be grounded forever. They weren't mad though, they were just overjoyed that I was okay. A bunch of bear hugs and tear-filled expressions of parental affection later, I felt terrible. They must have thought I was dead. I was missing for over 6 hours. Every single one of their friends was out looking for me. I'm such a butthole. In conclusion, when I was in kindergarten, I disappeared for over 6 hours on my way home from school and didn't tell anyone where I was, so I could play video games and eat candy. When I was younger, my parents took one of my toys away from me, a brand new mother-fricking Hulk toy. This made toddler me angry, so I did the only thing to do. I crapped in their room. I crapped all over their bed and floor. I reminded my mum about it, and she said I didn't just crap, but diarrheaed. I sprayed diarrhea all over my parents' bedroom. When I was young, maybe around 5 or 6, I was trying to find Christmas presents in closets or under beds, but instead I found a crapload of prophylactics and adult fun-time toys. At the time, I didn't know what they were, so I opened up the box of what I thought were balloons and started to run down the stairs with what I thought was a sword, or a vibrating toy, and trying to blow up the balloons. I then ran into the room where my parents were and started talking about how I finally found my Christmas presents. My parents still talk about that today. After being blown for the first time, I rushed home to tell my best friend in the world. I got on Facebook and told him every dirty detail. I then left my Facebook open when I went to shower. My mom, just arriving home, went to check her email and learned about my new adult adventures. My mum is the kind of person who doesn't believe children or teenagers should be allowed any privacy whatsoever, for their own good. I was really dumb and used to log all of my AIM convos, because who would want to read every single line hoping to find something salacious? Well, my mum, I guess, because she did, and buried in an AIM log was me telling someone that I really loved going down on him and couldn't wait to do it again. But she didn't tell me she read it, she told everyone else in my family, my siblings, my aunts, all of them, and all of her friends. She's a gossip and she lives on that crap. So everyone but me knew she'd found this, as well as some exposed photos a guy had sent me. Instead, she just carted me off to confession, bought me one of those Bibles for teens, and told me I needed to get right with Jesus. It wasn't until years later I discovered the depths of her invasion of privacy. Oh well. My dad was fixing this huge closet one day. The closet was very old and had an extremely heavy door. The problem with that closet was that the door hinges were loose. At that time I was about 8 or 9 years old, and my little sister was fooling around inside the closet while my dad was trying to tighten the hinges. He told me to get her out of there since she was just bothering him, and as I lifted up, the gosh darn closet door fell down on my pinky toe. It's all a blur, but I clearly remember me running down the hallway screaming my heart out while my sock got pumped with blood. After that, I passed out, waking up a while later in the back seat of my father's car with a crap load of toilet paper around my foot. My dad didn't say a word. When I arrived at the hospital, I got put under and operated. Fortunately, they managed to put my pinky toe back where it belonged. I'm guessing my dad felt very shameful after the incident. However, Mum told me a couple of years ago that after I lost my toe, he immediately put it inside his mouth because he'd read that that was the only way to save the toe from dying or something like that, and drove to the hospital with the toe in his mouth. I don't think he'll forget that. Ugh, this one makes me cringe just thinking about it. When I was 13, I was about as randy as you would expect a 13-year-old kid to be. The problem was, I was living in a very religious household at the time. My parents go through phases. This was their religious phase. Luckily for me, it was while I was going through puberty. And my parents had an ironclad parental filter on the internet, so adult flicks were out of the question. So I decided to draw my own adult material. And I'm a pretty gosh darn good artist when it comes to drawing things that are right in front of me to look at. So what I'd do is I'd take magazine pictures of women who had relatively little clothing on and just edit out the clothing I was drawing. Well, of course, my parents found my stack of drawings eventually, which isn't too bad, I guess. My dad even said uncomfortably that I had some talent at drawing and should pursue it, just with a different subject matter. Here's the part that makes me cringe. My mother decided that one of the drawings looked too much like her. It was purely coincidental. It was literally a picture out of an advertisement that I had copied to the best of my ability. And she asked me, very uncomfortably, if I fantasized about her. Ladies and gentlemen, not much in the world makes you want to crawl into a hole and die more than when your own mother thinks you've been fantasizing about her. And I have cringed so far into my office chair that I'm in danger of becoming the world's worst transformer. Oh gosh, please God no, I want this story to be fake. You know how your parents told you to never run with scissors? Well, I didn't listen. I was running through the house like an idiot and I tripped on the scissors and they went through my front teeth and jammed in the back of my throat. Blood sprayed out of my mouth and my nose. It frightened my parents so much that my mum passed out, and when she fell, her face was smashed on the floor. So I had to get 3 stitches, and my mum had $30,000 worth of face surgery, so I figuratively and literally traumatized my parents. One time during my sophomore year in college, I'd been feeling guilty for not seeing my family very often, even though they lived 20 minutes away, so I decided to take them out for dinner. Since I had some extra cash, I thought it would be nice to take them somewhere better, so we all went to Black Angus. I thought it would be cool to bring my boyfriend that I'd been dating seriously for 6 months. No one in my family normally does this. I found out later that my dad was scared crapless that I was going to tell the family that I was either pregnant or getting married at the dinner. Well, crap. When I was 2 or 3, my parents had me in the backyard. I was running around and generally being a small child. You know how it is. Apparently, I saw something cool on the ground, and like most children, my first reaction was to put this fancy thing in my mouth. The fancy thing was bird crap. My mom screamed and took a hose to my mouth. Bonus, I'm a huge misophobe now. I call it Stunt Baby. My 4-month-old standing on my hand as I balance him and let people take pictures. I hated school in 4th grade. Terrible teacher, a few bratty other students, made going to school miserable. So I loved any excuse to get out of school for all or even part of the day, even if it was a doctor's appointment. One day, for some reason, my doctor's appointment was cancelled. I was having none of this. I barricaded myself in my bedroom, no lock on the door, just my desk chair, and some other stuffed animals as a blockade, and screamed that I would rather die than go to school. My mum was freaked out, crying hysterically and everything. My poor dad having to deal with 2 hysterical women or girls at once. The next day, I had an emergency session with mum's therapist. I traumatized my mother once, both times when I was about 3 years old. The first time we were walking through the Botanic Gardens and there was a wedding taking place. Apparently the bride was a large lady, and I piped up in my piercing little voice, "Mummy, look at that fat bride!" My mother grabbed me under one arm and ran away. She thinks the bride didn't hear, but she's certain some of the guests did. The second time I traumatized her, she took me to her work one day, and I met one of her colleagues. He was from Ghana and had very dark skin. Apparently I said, "Mummy, look at that dirty man." Mum said she just wanted the floor to swallow her up, but the guy handled it with exceptional grace and just laughed and said, "Don't worry, at least I can't blush." Yeah, I'm surprised I wasn't left at an orphanage after those 2 episodes. I now have kids of my own who are determined to give me my comeuppance. When my mum was dropping me off at preschool, I saw the father of a girl in my class who was black. I tugged on his shirt and asked him, "Excuse me, sir, are you Susie's dad?" "I sure am, why?" At this point, my mother was terrified to know what my next statement would be. "You have the same dark skin as she does." My mom was about to die until he responded, "Yeah, it runs in my family," while laughing. Was your hangout with a celebrity better or worse than expected? Absolute best experience of my life. I ended up running over Bruce Willis. If you ever get a Make-A-Wish, ask to meet Kevin Smith. I was a bald, chemo-y fricking mess. My dad contacted Make-A-Wish. They came out and asked me what I wanted. I said, him. And within a week, our tickets were bought for us and our trip was planned. Usually takes weeks or months for celebrities to get back to Make-A-Wish. Kevin had whisked us out to New York to meet him on the set of Cop Out, which was then called a different name. He met me with the biggest bear hug of my life, and he was the nicest, sweetest, most genuine celebrity I could ever imagine. I spent the entire day on set, met Tracy Morgan, Bruce Willis, manhandled all of the equipment they would let me touch, and in the middle of it all, Kevin says, "Hey, you want to be in the movie?"
Yeah, I want to be in the movie.
Okay, I'm going to have you run over Bruce Willis.
Thanks, Kevin Smith.
So if you watch Cop Out, I'm the student driver that runs over Bruce under the L train. At the end of it all, he invited us back to his penthouse overlooking the Statue of Liberty and let us see the rough cut of Cop Out. I spent all day and night with him. My life has been miserable in comparison ever since. When I was about 12, my mum won backstage passes to Huey Lewis and the News. I met Huey Lewis and then we got to sit in the front seats. He routinely pointed and sang at us throughout the show. Unfortunately, this was 2004, so I was surrounded by middle-aged women screaming at him. He was a nice dude, even though my mum told him I sang one of his songs as a little kid and named a song that wasn't his, as we learned a couple of months ago. He just went along with it. My father-in-law got in an elevator at a convention. Huey Lewis was in it. My father-in-law says, "Oh wow, you're Huey Lewis." Huey Lewis responds, "Oh wow, you're Doug last name." Father-in-law is in shock and asks how he knows his name. Huey Lewis then points to the convention name tag my father-in-law is wearing. When I was like 4 or so, I won a contest to have lunch with Lou Ferrigno. This was in the late 70s or early 80s when the Incredible Hulk was running, and I was a huge fan, so I guess I was totally disappointed to find out that his skin wasn't really green. I also remember that we had funnel cake. Yum. About 5 years ago, I won a competition to spend the day with Hugh Jackman on the set of Baz Luhrmann's Australia. Was the nicest, most sincere guy. Never forgot my name and introduced me to everyone. Total legend.
He's one of the few actors you could never convince me was a crappy person. I saw a video of him recognizing a reporter at an event as a student of his from when he used to be a teacher. He seemed so happy about it.
Yep, Hugh Jackman seems like an absolute delight from what I've seen. It takes a guy with a good, humble sense of humor to engage in that kind of joke rivalry with Ryan Reynolds and look like that much of a jerk. Won a contest a couple of months ago to see a private Cage the Elephant show, and got to chat with them for a bit afterwards. Really cool, funny guys. Gave me a shout out later that night during their actual show. The private concert was pretty awkward though. In 2009, I entered a vitamin water contest to meet Adrian Peterson just for the heck of it. I ended up winning. I got to talk to him for a solid 2 hours, then watched a movie with him. I got to bring my dad with me, and we both had a fantastic time. He's my dad's favorite player, and he nearly broke both of our wrists with his handshake. I also got an autographed jersey that I got framed. He was extremely pleasant and seemed genuinely glad to be there. Oh, and I got a year's supply of vitamin water, which was pretty sweet. Ever since that experience, I've entered every contest I've come across. When I was 10, my dad took me to a Kiss concert. Poison opened up for them, and we got to go backstage. It was kind of cool seeing all these huge guys with long hair that I had no clue who they were. Gene picked me up and called me handsome. That's all I really remember about it, though. I met Richard Simmons at Walgreens. It went exactly as you'd imagine meeting Richard Simmons at Walgreens would go.
I met Richard Simmons at the Gap in Santa Monica. I was buying a gray shirt and he comes up to me and starts going on and on about how gray is a bad color on me and I must wear purple. The color of royalty and passion. He was outrageous and exactly like he is on TV. He then walked around and picked out some purple shirts, went up to the counter, and had some woman, his assistant I assume, buy them for me. He kept asking me if I was single or in love. I'm a dude with a girlfriend. In conclusion, Richard Simmons bought me some purple t-shirts from the Gap. I nearly forgot his best line. When I was like, "Are you sure?" to buying me the shirts, he responded, "Don't worry, honey, I made a lot of money on my CDs."
Well, I won a contest with Radio Disney to see a Seattle Sonics game with the band, Jump 5. I was 10 or so at the time, and it was pretty freaking cool, not so much to brag about now. A friend of mine got to meet Roger Bumpus, Squidward from SpongeBob, and overheard him curse. My friend said, "Squidward, you said a bad word." Roger turned to him, looked him in the eye, and said,
"The frick I did."
He then chatted for about 30 minutes and took a picture.
Those are sentence enhancers.
In high school, 2000 or so, I won a contest where you got to have dinner and meet Kane, the wrestler. We didn't really eat with him since he wore a mask, we sort of ate in the room with him there. He got a bunch of food to go and presumably ate it on his way to the next destination. The character of Kane didn't really talk, so there wasn't much interaction besides a handshake and a photo. It wasn't a bad experience, but I kind of thought there would be more to it. 2 months ago, in December 11th, it was the first Foo Fighters concert in Mexico, and just a couple of days before I happened to win a meet and greet with the band. I was so excited to meet my favorite band. All the band members are so awesome to hang out with, although the meet and greet is only like 10 minutes. I was able to chat with every member of the band, take a pic with all of them, except for Taylor. Pat gifted me one of his guitar picks, the band signed me a vinyl, and Dave Grohl took a selfie with me. It was one of my best days ever. I met Hanson by winning a drawing thing they do for their fan club after most shows. I've been a huge fan since I was 12. The three of them arrived looking rather glazed over, shook our hands and took pictures without asking us our names, or saying anything other than a polite greeting, and went on their merry way. Polite but impersonal. You could definitely tell that they'd been through the motions too many times. My mum won a radio contest to hang out with Ludacris, and I got to tag along. It was pretty cool, he's an awesome guy. He had complaints about whoever thought it was necessary to tell the caterers to bring so much chicken. He just talked about what his life was like and what it's like now. He learned everyone's name and signed a ton of stuff. Didn't get to spend as much time with the band though, just a meet and greet, a few questions and a quick show. It was fun, the band is awesome. Also, they love to have fans come up and sing with them, which is one of the coolest things I've seen a band do in a while. In 2001, I won a trip to Hollywood and a meet and greet with Jennifer Tilly. She was an absolute peach. Friendly, bubbly, personable, gorgeous. Everyone was telling how much they enjoyed her in Bullets Over Broadway. I was the only one who told her that I loved her in Bride of Chucky. She giggled and told me that was her favorite too. I've loved her ever since. That's sweet. I imagine doing a schlocky horror film would be tons more fun than most other productions anyway. Awesome. When I was maybe 12 to 13 years old, there was a contest on the radio to win a free lunch with Buzz Aldrin. First successful trip to the moon and the second guy to step foot on the moon. Apollo 11. At a Planet Hollywoods, or some similar themed restaurant. The question on the radio was simple. Name the 3 men in the Apollo 11 missions. My mum, who was driving me to basketball practice, swore the third guy was named Shepard or some other name. But I, a kid who was into space for a bit, knew that it was Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. My mother pulled the car over, called in, got through, and used my answer instead of hers. We won. I got to skip school to go to the restaurant and get a free lunch. I barely got to meet Buzz Aldrin though, and this was probably around 1997 to 1998-ish, so Buzz was in his mid to late 60s. He had a table set up, and he was signing autographs. I bought an original Apollo 11 poster my mum had saved away in the closet. Totally forgot how or why she had a vintage 8x10 glossy prints of all the astronauts and a super cool metallic print poster. But basically, I said hello to an old man, told him I knew the answer to a radio show, got some things signed and a photo was taken. Then I sat down and ate a burger with my mum. Pretty but hey, I got to skip school. In conclusion, won a radio contest with Buzz Aldrin of Apollo 11. I was pretty young and I didn't care. A couple of years ago, I did a science history project on what was going on at NASA ever since we landed on the moon. Well, one of the bits I was excited about was the trip to the moon to bring back a whole bunch of samples. Harrison Schmitt was the first and last pure scientist to go to the moon. Most of them are pilots and ex-military. He was a geologist, to be exact. He brought back 218, I think, pounds of moon rock, including helium-3. I called him for a project, but I kept getting his personal aide. She said she would have him call me back ASAP, but I didn't get a call for a week. Then I called like 3 times in a row, and I hear a little old guy on the other side of the phone introduce himself. I talked to him for like 45 minutes, shaking the whole time. I asked him questions like, how did he regulate body temperature? He said, the sun actually made it get quite hot inside the suits while they were digging for rocks, so they had what he described to be liquid long johns. Asked him about his work with helium-3 and nuclear fusion, and he said no one's excited about science anymore, so there's not as much funding as there needs to be. Last, the cheesy question of, what does weightlessness feel like? And he replied that it felt like never coming back down while jumping on a trampoline. I ramble, but he was a really nice guy. When I was 3, 1993-ish, my mum won tickets to go see the Wiggles at the Fremantle Town Hall. Anyway, once the show was over, me and my friend kept on dancing and playing in the hall while our mothers talked. We were only 4 left. As the Wiggles were leaving, they noticed us and played with me and my friend for about 20 minutes. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My dad worked on Ninja Turtles 2: Secrets of the Ooze. I got to meet the Ninja Turtles, hold Leonardo's swords, and hang out on set in the junkyard scene with the Foot Clan. It was kind of a big deal. Just a little extra info, I also got to visit the laboratory that the ooze was housed in that the Foot Clan stole it from. Also, I've told this elsewhere, but it's one of my coolest memories I have. After visiting my dad on set, my mum and I have to go leave, and as we drive outside of one of the giant sound stages, there are two guys, a prop master and costume guy, machining something metal. Sparks are flying off this workbench. Hard to tell what it was at first. As we get closer, I realize that what I'm looking at is none other than Shredder's helmet. But not just Shredder's normal helmet, it's the helmet of Super Shredder. Helped install Tom Hanks' home office, computers, printers, etc. He was really nice, does that count? He gave the two of us cookies. Computers? Printers? I thought he only liked typewriters. They're not AOL compatible. A friend of mine had cancer back in 2nd grade. The Make-A-Wish Foundation set him up to go with a friend to meet Fallout Boy. I got to be that friend. We got front row tickets to one of their concerts and we got to go backstage and meet them. I don't remember a lot of it, but they were really cool dudes and gave him a signed guitar, so that was cool. In '96, I won a contest to meet Adrian Paul of Highlander. We chatted about nerdy stuff, and years later, when I had my firstborn child, he contacted me to give congratulations. I still to this day don't know how he had my number or knew we were expecting. Pretty cool all around. I won a contest for a meet and greet with Cascade, general admission floor tickets to his AmITheA show, and VIP tickets to his after-party. Cascade was great. He came on the tour bus after the show, and I was able to talk with him about his favorite tracks and how it was like to be a DJ as well as the past gigs he went to. He really loves his fans, and I was lucky to get an autograph and picture with him. Some other people weren't so lucky because of Cascade's time constraints. Overall, a pretty awesome night. I found out I won at 3 p.m. on the day of the show, so I was kind of ecstatic. I was in the middle of stressing out for a licensing exam I was studying for, so this was the perfect stress reliever. Not to mention, I only spent $20 the whole night. Back in 2009, a friend of mine got us backstage for 9 Inch Nails for a quick band meet and greet. Trent had been someone whose music got me through adolescence, so I was pretty amped to meet him. When it came time, I walked up, we did the standard, everyone pose for the photo, and afterwards I said, "This is random, but I've got to know, are you a Dig or Reddit guy?" He looked at me, and I'll never forget this. "Actually, dude, Kevin Rose is a good friend of mine. I'm definitely a Dig guy." Oh well, I'm the co-founder of Reddit." "Geez, I'm sorry, dude." I thanked him for the photo and walked away. It was still a great show, and things worked out okay in the end. The moral of that story, kids, is to never meet your idols. Back in 2009, Dig was our chief competitor. It wasn't a platform for communities, just a single community, but the social news part was similar enough that everyone called us competitors. For anyone wondering, the person writing this story is verified as the actual co-founder of Reddit, and I'm honestly just including him on here because I can't believe that his testimony came up in my scriptwriting process about meeting celebrities. When I was 15, Tweekend had just been released. I got one of the first copies, which had a contest to win tickets to Cyberfest. A huge concert, 5 stages or something, with backstage VIP passes to meet the Crystal Method. I won. I never win anything in my life. Never ever. My mum wouldn't let me go. I didn't have an appropriate person to go with and give me a ride, someone she was sure wasn't on substances, and she didn't want to chaperone me. Goodbye $200 tickets, goodbye. I still haven't forgiven her for that. That's fricked up. I could maybe understand couldn't chaperone, but didn't want to is not a good enough excuse for making your kid miss something that cool. I totally agree. I mean, I went to the Justin Bieber movie, for Christ's sake. My eardrums will never be the same. This guy's mom should have bit the bullet and just gone to the concert. I won a contest to see and hang out with Less Than Jake perform an acoustic guitar concert at a guitar store. They were extremely nice and even drove me to their concert that was later that night. I always remember that it was in November because we talked about Thanksgiving traditions and they each talked about how awesome certain foods their grandmas made were. When I was like 8 years old, I got a backstage pass to a 98 Degrees concert. The Baha Men were the opening act, and my dad and I got to hang out backstage with them for like an hour. They were the nicest dudes. My dad told them I liked to sing, so they let me sing My Heart Will Go On for them. Then they autographed a CD for me and gave me a shout out at the concert. Never got to ask them who let the dogs out, though. Me and my cousin hung out with RuPaul once. He tricked some random guy into thinking he was an actual woman. It was pretty funny. I know we had pics, but I honestly can't find them anymore. Through a really convoluted connection, I was able to hang out backstage with The National, specifically with the drummer Brian Devendorf. He was extremely nice and went out of his way to pay attention to me and my friends. In retrospect, I feel bad because he seemed exhausted after playing a hell of a show. But he was still so intent on being sociable with us rather than just zoning out and having some beers, which probably would have been 1,000 times more appealing. He told a cool story about jamming with Bruce Springsteen, and then said he felt awkward about telling the story, as if I would think he was bragging about being a rock star. I think everyone involved was just interacting on a weird self-conscious level, which reached its apex when my friend, who was super drunk, asked him, "So what do you do exactly?" Having just watched the entire show and spent a good 20 minutes with the guy, we politely excused ourselves and let him move on with his evening almost immediately after that. When I had cancer, my aunt asked me who I wanted to meet that was famous. I asked for Rick Mercer. 4 days later, he was on my couch drinking an Alexander Keith's. We ended up exchanging numbers, and we have been friends ever since. He even got me and Alex Lifeson of Rush to become friends. Not the exact type of answer you're looking for, but better than a friend of a friend met. Ooh, I've got one. When I was real young, my dad and me went to go meet Robert Englund. He was signing autographs and he was saying it was always nice to meet his fans when my dad said, "My sister-in-law is terrified of you." Englund responded, "Is she home? Do you have her number?" Robert Englund, my dad and I went over to a payphone where he dialed the number and waited for her to pick up. My aunt said, "Hello?" Robert Englund, as Freddy frickin' Krueger, "Is this the sister-in-law?" "Yes, who is this?" "I'll be seeing you in your dreams tonight." Then he hangs the frick up while cackling like a madman. So yes, sometimes meeting your heroes is as awesome as you would expect. Once I won VIP tickets and a meet and greet to go meet the Dirty Heads. I arrived, did the usual pictures with the group, and then we went on the tour bus to hang out before the show. Absolutely the most boring people I've ever met. I'm sure it's because they were on Green Herb, but 2 of them laid down for a nap and the rest were just smoking and chatting amongst themselves. I ended up just chatting with the tour manager. I would have rather just stayed inside the venue and met people there rather than the band. Glad it wasn't for the entire day. Maybe 15 years or so ago, my friends and I went to a horror convention in New York. One of the featured guests was Tom Savini. At the time, my friend Tony was super into horror makeup and a big horror movie buff, as all of my friends were. At any rate, I guess none of us knew Tom was going to be there. So when Tony found out, he got wet his pants excited about it. I've never been the starstruck kind, so I was sort of weirded out by his behavior, but figured he'd cool his jets when he finally got in line to meet the guy. Nope. Tony's steadily getting more and more visibly anxious and he keeps telling me, "Guy's my childhood hero, you know, man?" I get it, I've loved Savini too since I was a kid, but I guess Tony just got super stoked for meeting the guy or something. So we get to the front of the line and I shake Tom's hand and go, "I love your work, man, keep doing what you do." And I turn to Tony expecting him to introduce himself, and Tony literally has his hands covering his mouth in that 7-year-old girl who just met a Disney princess at Disneyland pose. Except this is a burly, bearded 27-year-old wearing an Eraserhead t-shirt. We stand there for like 5 horrible seconds, and I kind of turn to Tom to say something on Tony's behalf, and I get about a quarter of the syllable out of my mouth before Tony blurts out, "Childhood hero!" and runs out of the conference room, leaving me standing there with a very bemused Tom Savini. I don't even remember how I recovered, I just think I said something along the lines of, "He's a really big fan of yours, thanks for your time," and walked with about as much dignity as I could muster. I didn't win anything, but I did make Steve Martin uncomfortable. My then wife bought tickets to see him receive the Mark Twain Award for Comedy at the Kennedy Center. My wife and I had been out at a bar and I was finishing my gin and tonic. I ordered a second. As the bartender delivered it, the lights flashed. That's the indication that it's time to get seated. I tossed my gin and tonic down my throat and headed toward the ticket ripper lady. As she inspected our tickets, I asked, "I'm sorry, where's the closest men's room?" "Up the stairs and to your left." "Thank you." And I went up the stairs and turned to the right, because I'm an idiot. But I saw a sign that said men's room. Good enough for me. I headed for the door, I peed, flushed, and turned around and washed my hands. No paper towels, no regular towel, nothing. I'm in a suit. I can't exactly wipe my hands on my pants. I'm stuck. I finally just decide to leave my wet hands held in front of me like a surgeon freshly scrubbed for surgery, and I leave the men's room. And I find my wife telling Mr. Steve Martin, "No, I don't really get your comedy. We're here because my husband is a huge fan. Oh, here he is. Roman, Steve, Roman." I blurt out, "I really am a huge fan." And he sticks out his hand for a reluctant handshake. I stick my still dripping wet hand in his and shake vigorously. "Congratulations on the award, Mr. Martin. Sorry about the wet hand, I just peed. We should be getting to our seats. It was an honor to meet you." And with that, I let go of his hand, and my wife and I left for our seats on the exact opposite side of the balcony. Just before we rounded the corner, I looked back and saw Steve Martin standing beside his balcony door, looking at his wet hand. I knew what was going through his mind. I can't even wipe my hands on my pants. I'm wearing a stupid suit.
Reddit, what zero-tolerance school stories do you have? Make 'em juicy. My sister almost got suspended in the 3rd grade because my mom put a plastic butter knife in her lunch one day. I forget why she needed it for her lunch. One of the lunchroom aides spotted her using it and sent her right to the principal's office, and they called my mom to come in. This was 10 years ago. My cousin, 1 grade lower than me, got into a fight at school. Zero-tolerance policy says they are both suspended. Attached to this policy is, if a student is involved in 3 separate fights within their time at the high school, then they were expelled. Within 2 weeks of my cousin returning, one of the guy's friends started a fight with my cousin. They are both suspended. A few weeks after he returns again, another friend of the original kid starts a fight with my cousin. In each situation, the other kid threw the first punch. Zero tolerance each time means it didn't matter. That is how children outsmarted the zero tolerance policy and why my cousin graduated from a private high school. When I was in year 10, grade 9 for Americans, we all had to line up to go into the dinner hall. For whatever reason, they put the menu with what they were serving that day at the front of the queue, so I walked to the front to read it. As I was walking back, a tiny year 8 kid shouted over to me, "Hey, stop trying to cut in the line, you jerkhead." I just told him to screw off and mind his own business, as it's the kind of school where, if it looks like you're giving in to a younger kid without fighting your corner, you won't hear the end of it. Then the little crap rugby tackled me, but he was too small to knock me over, so I just kind of stood there awkwardly as he tried to kick me. After a while, I'd had enough, so I grabbed him and picked him up, put him up against the wall where he was standing before, and turned to walk off. The headmaster was standing right in front of me, and he'd been watching the whole thing. We both got sent to the, quote, reflection room, which is like a higher form of detention. The only time I got in trouble was for trying to walk away from a fight started by someone half my size who I probably could have hurt if I wanted to. Thanks, headmaster. Now I know in the future that I should just deck the little bugger instead of being gentle, because the punishment is going to be the same anyway. In 9th grade, I was in a class that had some disruptive students that always caused problems for the teacher. During the semester, they were forced to sit at the desks nearest the teacher's desk. I wasn't a bad student at all, but for some reason, I was forced to sit in the front of them. I was mad. One day, we had a substitute, and my entire row gave the sub a very hard time. When the actual teacher came back, she forced everyone in my room to detention. Many other students protested for me, even the bad students in my row. She said, quote, "That's too bad." From that day forward, I helped the, quote, bad students to not get caught whenever they screwed with her. Not me, but my niece once had to do a school project about the Voyagers. We lived in a relevant area, in the computer lab. So she innocently typed in furtraders.com/org/net whatever. Of course, it was adult pictures. She got suspended. Left a BB gun in my friend's car in high school. Security saw it and he got kicked out. I talked to the principal, who was our friend and mentor, about reversing the decision or taking the punishment myself. He was just as upset as me, but he kept explaining that his hands were tied. He finally just looked me in the eye and said, "Zero tolerance." Actually, he used my name afterward, so I knew the conversation was over. My friend graduated from an alternative school. I once got suspended because a security guard found an unloaded airsoft pistol in the back of my truck. Let me be clear, by pistol, I mean those ones made of clear plastic, and by back of my truck, I mean behind the passenger seat of a crew cab with tinted rear windows. The security guard is really doing his job, eh? Making these suburban high schools safe for everyone. Also, I had a friend who got suspended for bringing a metal butter knife to school with his lunch. A knife is a knife, people. There could be no tolerance for weapons or logic and reasoning. 2 people got suspended for fighting off school property with each other. Also, not my school, but a local school, and it made the news. A girl with Down syndrome or an intellectual disability said a popular athlete touched or assaulted her in the library, and they made the girl write an apology letter to him, only to find out later he did do it, many times. When I was in 10th grade, I was eating dinner with my family and my dad accidentally spills his beer all over my shirt. No big deal, so I go upstairs and take my shirt off for the night. The next day while I'm getting dressed, I see that I'm out of clean shirts to wear, so without thinking, I grab the shirt from last night and put it on, eat breakfast, and get out the door. The day was pretty normal, until I was called up to the front office. I wasn't really a bad kid or anything, so I wasn't too worried. Once I arrived, the principal informed me that another student told him that I smelled like beer and assumed that I had been drinking. I told the principal about what happened last night and assured him that I had not been drinking. He tells me that it still counts as bringing alcohol onto school grounds, and for that, I was suspended. TLDR, some people drink their alcohol, others wear it, but it is all the same in the eyes of the principal. We have a zero-tolerance, no-fighting rule in our gymnasium. Like, even if you lay down on your back while you're getting jumped, you'll still get expelled. Happened to get in a fight with a guy I could honestly beat down, but since I really didn't want any trouble with the school or at home, I just blocked my head until the principal came by. After a minute of discussion, he told me that I'd get suspended for 2 weeks, even when I told him that I didn't hit back. So I did what any teenager would have done, I think. I got loose from the principal and beat the other guy down and took my punishment. I won't tolerate you not being subscribed to Am I the Genius or Am I the Jerk either, linked in the description below, so you better subscribe, or else. My school had a zero-tolerance policy on cell phones and electronic items. Obviously, you can't convince a high schooler to not bring a phone with him or her, so the administrators would do, quote, raids occasionally and bust some phones each time. They didn't give it back until the end of the year. In high school, I got suspended for 1 week because I had a bottle of prescription painkillers in my locker. I was taking them because I got a serious knee injury while playing for the school baseball team. I also got kicked off the team and wasn't allowed to participate in any sports at school for the last 2.5 years of my high school education. The principal explained to me that they had a zero-tolerance policy to drugs of any kind. Worst part is, I could have went to at least 10 different lockers in school and shown him drugs in there, but he wouldn't let me because I shouldn't be, quote, snitching on my peers. Screw you, Principal Vickers. This one's a long one. After I'd beaten the original Half-Life, I started rooting around on the install CD and found out that they had included Worldcraft on the disc, so I installed it and gave it a shot. Mapping very quickly became a hobby of mine. As a result, I got very interested in architecture and geometry and started to take more notice of the way buildings were structured and laid out. I tried to get my friends into it, but I clearly took to it more than they did. But that was totally fine, since it meant I had a group of dedicated playtesters at my disposal. Anywho, I had mentioned something about the blocky, boxy design of our school, and that it would translate pretty easily into the grid-based, low-polygon world of Quake-based maps. I can already see where this is going. As a few of us were walking between classes, we talked a bit about it, pointing out how to model each shape, where we could cheat and optimize things, where we might need to do manual VIS leaf splits, and so on, but didn't make any plans to do anything. That evening, I went home and blocked out about a 15-foot squared area and abandoned the idea after a few hours because the school itself was architecturally boring and pretty tedious to work on. It's important to note that I didn't publicly release this work in progress. That must have been in the middle or end of a week. Fast forward to the next Monday, and my biology class is interrupted by 5 or 6 police armed with pistols. They entered through all 3 classroom doors at the exact same time and must have known the seating arrangement ahead of time because they instantly focused on me and moved in extremely quickly without breaking into a run. 1 took my backpack, at arm's length. 2 took me in that arm-twisting underarm hold thing where they kinda half-carry you. I was never cuffed. When we got outside, I saw at least 3 more, 1 with a shotgun, 2 more going through my locker. When we got to the administration building, I was led into a room in the back and kept there for pretty much the rest of the day and questioned on and off by various cops and guidance counselors/school psychologists. They wanted to know where I had hid my bombs, how many guns I had access to, if I had stashed extra ammunition anywhere, and reminded me repeatedly that if anyone had stumbled across one of the weapons I had hidden somewhere across the school, I'd be liable for anything that happened. They said on several occasions that they had enough to arrest me for conspiracy to commit murder and insisted that I just cooperate and give up my compatriots. Needless to say, I was scared and terribly confused. Apparently, over the weekend, the little discussion I had had with a few friends as we were walking through the halls had been overheard and grossly exaggerated. The idea to make a level had transformed into me already having a level of the school completed, placing entities such as doors had transformed into placing students everywhere, and doing it in the Half-Life engine apparently meant that I had built a massacre planning tool. What the police had heard from their source was so vastly different from the reality I understood that I spent the first hour of questioning completely lost and confused because I genuinely could not understand what they were asking about. Their source had apparently said that I individually replicated the entire student body and thusly asked who I planned on targeting first. I tried explaining how long hand-making 2,000 models and textures by hand would take, but they seemed to tune out every time I opened my mouth. Their source maintained that I had publicly released this map and that he had played it multiple times at my insistence. There were other things. My dad had been on Paris for business and had grabbed some French newspapers for me, which I had stashed in my locker, waiting for a show-and-tell opportunity in my French class. I spent probably a half hour of my questioning reassuring the police that this was, in fact, French and not some kind of secret code language that I was using to communicate with people. They took the newspapers and I never got them back. After the initial "holy crap they're pointing guns at me" wore off, it was a very strange day. One of the cops, I don't remember who, must have eventually figured out what was going on because he and I spent the last hour or so talking about Pixar and computer animated movies. I understand that they sent police cars to my family members' houses and searched at least my parents' house, but I don't think they had a warrant. My dad was out of state at the time, and my mom did not take my side. I'm pretty sure she waived my right to have an adult or attorney present during questioning, and I know she told the cops to arrest me and that she would not post bail. I know exactly who the police's source was. I was good friends with him and his brother for a few years. I have not spoken to either since I was dragged out of class. I have no idea what I did to anger either or both of them. It's important to note that this was sometime after the turn of the millennium, but before September 11th. If it was afterwards, I am completely confident I would have been on the receiving end of a proper SWAT team and the entire school would have been evacuated. TLDR, zip zop zoobity bam, time to nuke Afghanistan. I went to a very, very, very crappy school district. I mean, this place is scum in so many ways. My little brother has ADD and mild autism. He's a very nice kid and always has been. I mean, he opens doors for everyone and compliments people he doesn't even know. Anyways, there was a kid in his grade who was the biggest jerk. He was mean to everyone, even the poor kids who were his friends. He always picked on my brother and his friends, calling them the R word and everything else. One day, we get a code red. Everyone is stuck in their classrooms, and there had been a recent trend in girls fighting in the bathroom, so everyone assumed that was what was going on. No, I wish it had been a girl fight. I get called down to the office about an hour later. My brother and his best friend were walking to class. They were at the top of one of the stairwells when Jerky McJerkhat came up behind them and shoved my brother down the stairs as hard as he could. My brother tried to grab onto the brick wall to stop himself from falling and ended up dragging his hand down the bricks, ripping his hand apart. He still has the scar. He hit his face on the tile at the bottom after doing several head-over-heels rolls down the stairs. His nose and lip were bleeding, and his back was hurt so bad they thought he had broken it. He ended up going to the ER. Fast forward a week later. He's back in school and the principal calls him to her office. This woman. I don't know how this woman was ever allowed to work in a school. She made my brother shake hands with this jerk and make up. She said the alternative was both of them getting suspended because she did not believe my brother did nothing to provoke him from pushing him down the stairs despite 2 witnesses telling her what had happened. My brother has been bitter over that ever since. Also, when my mom found out she had to shake Jerky McJerkhat's hand, she went to the school and confronted the principal. The principal told my mom, well, maybe if your son wasn't annoying, it wouldn't have happened. My mom pulled her across the desk and a secretary had to pull her off of her. W's in the comments for that, mom, please. There wasn't really a zero tolerance thing back then, but school was over. I was starting my walk home and a friend runs by and drops his bag by me and yells to me to carry it. We were going to play hockey after school, so whatever. Nothing of circumstance came of it. I never heard where he was even running to. Next day, teacher is all ticked off. I go in to see the principal, and turns out my friend was trying to pick a fight. Mind you, apparently all he ever did was run after someone but never even got close to them. Not even the same block. There was no fight. This also happened all outside of the school. So naturally, my friend was suspended for a week plus remaining days in that week. And because I carried his bag, I was an accomplice in the fight, which never happened. I was suspended for the remaining days in that week. There was like a 2 to 3 day vacation for me that I was happy to take. It was all crappy rainy days, but I was happy to leave. Not quite zero tolerance, but my friend's sister grew up in quite a foul-mouthed household with older siblings. Her first words were, "son of a gun," blurted out emphatically for no apparent reason at the breakfast table. And when she was quite young, first grade, some boy pushed her on the playground. She called him a boob, he broke down and cried, told a teacher she had to eat lunch on the psychologist's office the rest of the year because she was a danger to the other students or something, and her mother, quote, had to come in. Mother told them that if they thought that was the most pressing issue they had, she thought they should look harder. Didn't go to the meeting. She's awesome in general. The boob got in no trouble for pushing her because he told on her first. She could have easily beaten the crap out of him. I'm in Britain, where zero tolerance isn't really a thing. I think the closest thing we got to zero tolerance were when teachers would hold an entire class back in detention, including the ones who were not disruptive and were doing the work. It seriously made me angry when I was at school. It happened mostly during years 7, 8, and 9. I'd have been 11 when I started year 7, which is the first year of secondary school in Britain. I know a girl who got suspended for having cough drops in the back seat of her car. I don't have a story, but I was blamed for a fight that happened on a weekend that wasn't even on school grounds. This kid who doesn't even go to my school, who has a name really similar to mine, got in a fight with some kid at my school, so naturally, they thought it was me. Thankfully, a couple days earlier, my friend told me about said fight, so I was able to provide some background information to get myself out of blame. But they took me to a friggin' room with the school cop and some other people, and they were treating this like a massive deal. It's a fight that happened on the weekend at a skate park, and one of the kids doesn't even go to the same school. Why are you meddling in their business? Bully punches kid in face. Kid doesn't fight back because he knows he'll get suspended for fighting. Kid lets the bully hit him until a teacher gets there. Teacher gets there and gives a detention to the bully and the bullied. My stepbrother and his friends all got suspended for pretending to have lightsabers at recess. No, not plastic ones, literally their imagination. A boy bullied me for almost an entire year, called me fat, that kind of thing. I said if he kept talking to me, I was going to kill him. I got in-school suspension for 2 days. He got a talk from the guidance counselor about how you shouldn't bully girls you have a crush on. Edit, it's been so long that I don't really remember what happened, but the reason I got caught is because the teacher saw me crying. She came over to investigate while he was harassing me and heard me say that to him. Because the teacher didn't hear him say anything to me, I was the only one who got in trouble. Chewing gum. Rather, looking like I was chewing gum because my jaw was sore from having rubber bands on my braces. Ended up in an isolation room for the rest of the day and then got suspended for a week. Looking back now, I realize how stupid most grade school suspensions are because it doesn't really teach you anything other than the fact you get a vacation for looking like you're breaking a silly rule. The parochial school I went to had a zero tolerance for LGBT teens out of the closet. My senior year, right after I came out, the vice principal pulled me out of study hall and into his office to confront me about it. I'll never forget. I've heard some rumors. Are you gay? With the look on his face as if I had threatened to shoot the school up. Long story short, it was either go back in the closet or be expelled. I didn't want to leave because it was my senior year, I was almost done, and I wanted to graduate with my friends. In retrospect though, seriously, screw that guy and that school's administration. A kid from my school tweeted, quote, "suicide bomb, #RIP." This was apparently some references to a song, and the dude tweeted it right after a breakup. Anyway, my school decides to evacuate everybody for 3 hours while they bring in over a dozen K-9 units. There were 3 news helicopters there as well, along with a bunch of cop cars. The kid ends up being expelled. I once got detention because the 2 guys behind me were talking in line. We used to have to line up several times during the day, army style. Straight lines with uniform inspection, perfect silence. My only detention to date. When I was in high school, a girl spit in my eye. I see that as the lowest form of an insult you could possibly do to someone, so naturally, I retaliated. I yelled and screamed when my friend held me back. Eventually, due to heart issues and being overwhelmed with the stress on my body, I passed out. I woke up in a classroom, and that was about it. I gave the office my account on things, and they did their, quote, investigation. Well, if I remember correctly, it was a day or 2 later before we were both suspended for fighting. My school had a zero hat policy because of, quote, gangs. I got suspended for wearing a raccoon skin hat. I guess I was representing the Davy Crockett gang. Round 2. Make-A-Wish employees, what was the most strange thing a Make-A-Wish kid asked for and actually received? I shot an internal promotional video for Make-A-Wish once. I got to read through a big book of wishes they had granted. Some of them were so extravagant and amazing. Family vacations, celebrity meetings. And then I saw a 3-year-old who wished for a banana split for breakfast. And that's what they gave him. No one was like, "Ayo, wish higher." I helped host a visit to a planetarium by a kid whose wish was to go to the moon. The front office folks thought I could just give her a personal tour of the planetarium and show her some nice high-resolution visuals, but I thought she deserved better than that. I commissioned a jeweler friend and meteorite enthusiast to make a silver crescent moon necklace, which he graciously donated to the cause, and I donated a small lunar meteorite from my own collection. It was a gorgeous necklace, very much to the credit of my friend's artistry and generosity. We couldn't take her to the moon, so we gave it to her instead. She was thrilled, but later said her real highlight of the trip was the astronaut ice cream. Ah, kids. My daughter was a Make-A-Wish kid. She asked to go to Australia to meet the Wiggles. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to travel that far. We live in the US, health-wise. She made a second wish to meet Captain America. We never told Cap that he was a backup wish after the Wiggles were a no-go. When my sister was 5 and I was 8, she had cancer and the opportunity to make a wish. When our mom and the Make-A-Wish person sat down with her, they told her she could wish for whatever she wanted. She just kept saying she wanted macaroni. They kept saying, "But it could be anything you want." Yet she simply wanted macaroni and cheese. After some strong encouragement to think bigger and the Make-A-Wish person suggesting Disneyland, she chose to go to Disneyland. My good friend had ALL leukemia. He asked for a ride in a fighter jet, and somehow he got it. I was surprised, because the doctors would say how his bones were getting fragile and weaker, and I guess I thought the G-forces of the jet would hurt him, but he was fine and had a blast. He's doing better now and is scheduled out in about 3 months. I was granted a wish after beating brain cancer in 2015. They flew my mom and I out to the capital city of our state, and we stayed in the flashiest, most expensive hotel suite with all the bells and whistles. We got free dinner, drinks, and dessert on arrival, got to chill in the VIP lounge while we were waiting for our room. Our room was decorated with teddy bears and chocolates and Make-A-Wish decorations. The next day, we were chauffeured to the local mall in a limo, and I went on an 11-hour shopping spree with a preloaded Visa card and bought every solitary thing you could imagine a 16-year-old girl wanting. I ended up having to buy another suitcase to take everything home with me, but it was the most epic 3 days of my life. I'll never forget it. Number 1. To be a merman, a boy mermaid. He got a tail and swam in the giant tank with other mermaids at the aquarium. Number 2. To play football with the quote, red team. No pro or college preference, just had to be red. USC made it happen. Number 3. To be a quote, cool kid. Got a limo ride to the mall. Red carpet entrance with cheering fans, signed autographs, shopping spree for clothes. 5 years old. So cute and very cool. Number 4. To be Robin. Not Batman. He said he wasn't ready for that. Went on an epic adventure fighting crime with Batman. I was a chef at a fancy steakhouse in Jacksonville, Florida. One day, my proprietor came to me and said, "This is Stacy, the new girl. She'll be training with you." I look over, and it's this adorable little girl in a bright pink chef's coat. I babysat my little cousins at the time, so I was actually pretty used to entertaining 10-year-old girls at the time. So I showed her the ropes. We made all kinds of stuff that were on the surface kinda random. Candied bacon, cornbread, prosciutto-wrapped Boursin cheese stuffed asparagus, a sweet tea brined pork chop, a sorrel garnish salad type thing, and some other cool garnishes. We were having fun. I then made a puree out of the cornbread, let her plate up the dish a few different ways to show how you can play with the ingredients and height to showcase different parts of the dish. She had a blast. It was only at the end when the father came up to me in tears that I realized what was going on. In the moment, I was a little upset because nobody told me, but I realized it was for the best. I probably would not have been as bright and vibrant with the lessons had I have known, but it was a fulfilling experience for sure. I sure hope that family is doing well. Side note, I have reworked and reran the dish as a special a few times in memory of that day. It was that impactful. If there's one thing in the world I would wish for, it's for you to subscribe to the Am I the Jerk channel and Am I the Genius linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and drop a like if you're enjoying the video. It really helps. I worked at a hospice, and we had a wishing program. One of our patients, 24-year-old with brain cancer, wanted to hold a sloth. Apparently, sloths are very nervous creatures, so it's a little tricky to actually hold one. I found a local company that does visits to schools and whatnot who had a sloth. Sloths only poop about once a week, bear with me here, and the sloth could only travel the day after he pooped, because they get nervous any longer than that and the sloth has stress diarrhea. So basically, we had to wait until the sloth pooped and then set up the visit for the next day. The sloth pooped on Thanksgiving, so we set up the visit for the next morning. The patient was able to hold and pet a very sweet sloth. The patient died about 3 weeks later, and I am very happy I was able to help give her some joy in her final moments. Wow guys, I did not expect this to blow up. Thank you so much for the awards. The hospice I worked at had a special program called Faithful Wishes for any of our patients, regardless of age. As the volunteer coordinator, fulfilling these wishes was part of my job. I do believe there are other nonprofit organizations that grant wishes to adults, but nothing as large as Make-A-Wish. Yes, the sloth was tame and lived in an animal preserve. He would also visit schools and retirement communities, schedule permitting. And yes, I absolutely learned more about sloth bowel movements than I ever wanted to. I worked at a Lego retail store in the 2000s, and Make-A-Wish approached us for a child with terminal osteosarcoma who wanted to be in the store for a day. Lego unfortunately denied the request, which surprised myself and the rest of the staff because Lego was a pretty great company. Staff decided to honor the request ourselves. We closed the store early on a Sunday, then invited the kid and family in. He had a full run of the store. We collectively paid for like $1,000 worth of toys for him to take home and just spent the entire evening building whatever he wanted. He died a few months later. Not Make-A-Wish, but my brother got terminal brain cancer when he was 18. He was given 3 to 6 months to live. Back then, his only wish was to be an NFL player, but he was 5'8", all heart. He was just like Rudy in that Notre Dame football movie. He fought it for 6 years. Somewhere around his 22nd birthday, he and I were talking about having something worth living for. I told him it didn't matter what it was, but a vision for the future that he would fight for was important and encouraged him to find something to give his life to. We went on a vacation soon after that, and because we were broke from medical bills and 4 years of battling cancer as a family, this was a huge deal. We hadn't had a family vacation for a long time. A family friend put us up in their beach house and gave us some money to have a good time there. My brother came alive on the trip. It was so impactful to him that he came home and decided to start a nonprofit organization. He called it A Week Away. It was very similar to Make-A-Wish. Terminally sick patients apply and benefit from an all-expenses-paid vacation with their family or group of caregivers. That was a big deal to him to include the family, because if you've ever done something like that, you know it's not just the patient who suffers and loses their freedom, it's everyone they are close to. He worked his butt off to start the organization. He formed it and began sending families to places like the Outer Banks and Ocean City and other East Coast beaches. A week before he died, he launched his first big, month-long fundraiser. He passed away knowing that he had raised enough to send like 10 families on respite weeks. It was like he was passing the baton off to others who could keep on fighting. The org is still going strong today. If anyone is blessed to have their health and a sweet vacation spot you'd like to donate for occasional use by sick people all coordinated by an awesome organization, I'd encourage you to reach out to the A Week Away folks. You get to play a part in people's lives like the awesome people helping in these Make-A-Wish stories. There was a Make-A-Wish kid in a class I taught once, and their wish was to tour a pickle factory. Pickles were their all-time favorite food, and they wanted to see how the sausage was made, so to speak. Apparently, Vlasic rose to the occasion in a major way, and she had the time of her life. A friend of mine is a K-9 police officer. He helped Make-A-Wish grant a wish to a set of twins with the deadliest form of cystic fibrosis. Most of the time, kids with CF aren't allowed to be around others with it because of cross-infecting bacteria. Them being twins shortens their life expectancy even more. Well, these 10-year-old boys wanted to meet a police dog. My friend and some of his buddies upped the wish, and during their meeting of his dog, they got called to help solve 3, quote, crimes in their town. They pulled over a hijacker, found and arrested a robber, and helped find a, quote, missing 6-year-old, my friend's nephew. The town police department gave them certificates and honorary police badges for their work. Around 200 people showed up to where they got their awards to cheer them on. At their 11th birthday, they gave my friend a plaque they made with their dad, thanking him for the best day ever. I was approached by a similar organization who wanted to arrange a day for a kid to shadow a veterinarian. I'm just a small animal veterinarian with a small hospital, so I found it odd that I'd be approached. I said yes, who the heck would say no? And we picked a day and had our regular patients in the hospital, and the kid got to watch us do our thing for a day. We gave him a lab coat and a stethoscope and let him tag along and see x-rays and ultrasounds and watch surgeries. I brought my dog in so he could try the ultrasound on her. He seemed to enjoy it. It wasn't a terribly strange request, really. It just seems like my day-to-day isn't something anyone would consider their dream experience. In Wizard 101, there's a quest with an NPC named Brandon, named after a Make-A-Wish kid who played the game. And his request was to design a side quest for the game. You meet Brandon and go help him clear out this dungeon with 2 really hard bosses. Was a lot of fun. At the end, you get a gem you can socket that lets you summon Brandon into battle as a follower. Pretty cool. Not sure what ended up happening to Brandon, but it's really cool that thousands of people have gotten to enjoy being a part of his wish, to be honest. My cousin was a Make-A-Wish kid. He loved golf, had a scholarship to go play college, he loved it so much. He got to meet and play a round of golf with Payne Stewart. Unfortunately, he died not too long after that. Screw cancer. I know someone who was granted a wish. Of all things they could choose, they asked for 2 tiny birds, 2 budgies. After I survived cancer at 17, I was offered a wish. I went to Christmas Island with my family to see the spawning of the red crabs, reckoned to be one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Picture it. 1 million fist-sized red land crabs making their way down to the sea edge to release their eggs into the ocean over a period of just 3 hours or so. The Make-A-Wish volunteers looked horrified as I explained it. And I'm typing this now, so yes, I lived. Thanks. Edit. Come to think of it, I'm pretty sure my wish caught my family a bit off guard too. I had a coworker at my student job in college who had leukemia as a child. He wished to be in the IDOWROD, so they flew his family to Alaska and he got to meet all the dogs and ride in a sled for a leg of the race. If I remember correctly, he also got a husky puppy. He was 20 when I met him. I was a couple of years older and graduated college and never saw him again. The leukemia came back and he died in 2016. I don't think he was much older than 25. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. I hope heaven is real, just for you, Ben. When I was on a carrier, they flew a kid and his parents out. They routinely fly distinguished visitors, but we thought it was weird there was this kid. They got tours and watched flight ops, but he couldn't fly with us, so they asked us to have dinner with him so he could at least meet pilots and ask questions. It was really humbling when we realized this is what he was there for. He literally wished to just come see what we do and hang out with us. I'm a Make-A-Wish volunteer. The volunteers get to do all the fun stuff, like meet with the families, get the kids excited about their wish. We send little gifts and stuff along the way, and then be there when the wish is granted. We don't have to do any of the boring admin stuff. I have a little girl right now whose original wish was a unicorn, 6-year-old with severe epilepsy, has 15 seizures a day, and has been through 10 surgeries already. She wasn't having any of that fake stuff, like a stuffed animal or a costume. She insisted for weeks on a unicorn. That one was hard to manage. She's getting a cat. I was a Make-A-Wish kid back in 2017, and my wish was to go see a live brain surgery in Seattle at University of Washington. I loved Grey's Anatomy, I loved Dr. Shepard, and I had brain cancer, so I wanted to see what my doctors kinda saw. What an experience, and I learned so much. I was a little neurosurgeon for a day, and the neurosurgeon was playing the Pixies while operating. What a great happy moment. I won't forget. They even sent my family from Arizona to Seattle with me to have dinner with me in the Space Needle. I was a Black Hawk pilot in the Army, and we had a Make-A-Wish kid who wanted to fly in an Army helicopter. We had to remove all the seats so we could strap his wheelchair down in the middle of the helicopter, and we flew him around at treetop level, yanking and banking with the doors open for a while. I'm a wish granter. My strangest personal wish was a refurbished 80s camper so that she could have her own space. She couldn't go out in public while her transplant was new-ish, and she was going crazy in the house with 2 younger siblings. It was actually pretty cool, although the strange part was that Make-A-Wish can't actually use, quote, used things like that. So we had to get her a new VW camper, or something like that, it's been a while, and, quote, artfully make it look vintage. So strange. Anyways, please feel free to apply to be a Make-A-Wish volunteer. It's such a rewarding experience, and even if you don't feel like you can work with the kids, there's also other volunteer positions like fundraising, event planning, and more. Former employee here. Over half of the wishes are Disney-related, and beyond that, they typically fall into a few categories. I wish to travel, I wish to meet, I wish to be, I wish to have, I wish to give. You get the idea. So, I always liked wishes that fell outside of the typical wish categories. One time, there was a boy that wished for the perfect baked potato. I don't know if the wish granters went through with that wish. They may have waited until he was a little older, but I still laugh when I think about it. Volunteers are trained to ensure they are determining the child's one true wish, not mom's wish to go on a cruise or dad's wish for new tools, etc. A lot of work and thought goes into fulfilling a child's wish. My brother had cancer when we were in high school. We all got to go to an ice skating rink in New York City and play hockey with some of the New York Rangers. He was a Flyers fan, but what can you do? This wasn't actually his wish, but it was set up at the Make-A-Wish Foundation for all the terminal kids at the hospital, I'm pretty sure. I used to know a dude who got sick in high school, and his wish was to see Rocksteady Studios and be in one of their games. The studio was super cool, evidently, and they put him in Arkham Knight as a GCPD officer. Best part of the story is that he recovered and, last I heard, is still doing okay to this day. Glad to see that I'm not the only one with this, quote, weird request. I was also eligible for Make-A-Wish when I started high school, and I asked to visit DICE at their HQ in Stockholm. I didn't ask to be in any of their games though. Dang it, why didn't I think of that? I was passionate about game development, and I still am, and thus wanted to see what it's like to work in a AAA studio, and also ask a bunch of game dev stuff. They constantly asked me, are you sure you wouldn't rather want to go to Disneyland? I said, this is my Disneyland. Guess they thought it was a weird request for a 15-year-old to make. This year, I finished my bachelor's degree in computer science, and in the future, I can hopefully land a job in game dev. Edit, I see many people here congratulating me for surviving. I forgot to disclose that the condition I have is not nearly as deadly as, for example, cancer. I have had a heart condition that has been treated through surgery since birth. This condition will never go away and can cause death even after treatment, but my doctor monitors my condition every year so far, and it's looking excellent. Just wanted to address this. Okay, this is more wholesome than anything, but a girl who was a grade above me had cancer in high school. She graduated, and I joined the band my senior year to see this plaque with her name and face on it from Make-A-Wish. She used her wish to donate new instruments to the school's band, as they were needing new ones. I still know her to this day, and she makes a ton of jokes about cancer that it even freaked out her college roommates. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met. I had a wish when I was 8 due to having leukemia and a bone marrow transplant. My first thought was, meet Bruce Willis. Die Hard was my newly discovered favorite film. But my dad asked if I wanted something that would last like a computer. I always loved playing on the hospital computers, so yeah, I went for that. Best decision ever. I might owe my career to it. I hear Bruce Willis is a bit of a jerk IRL anyway. A funeral. He knew his parents wouldn't be able to afford one, so he wished to have his funeral paid for. They were able to convince him to make another wish, and he wished for gold lockets for his mom and sister with his initials engraved on them. Edit, his funeral was paid for as well. I believe another nonprofit helped with that. They just really wanted him to have a wish for himself, but all he cared about was his family. I'm not a Make-A-Wish employee, but a kid at my church a long time ago wished to sit in a bathtub full of peach-colored loofahs. The softball kind, obviously, not the hard, sponge-like ones. He got it, and the church bulletin had a picture of this kid smiling like a maniac in a huge bathtub full of loofahs, so I guess he was happy with his wish. When my son was 3, his Make-A-Wish was to meet Elmo. For a 3-year-old, not that strange, I guess. Sent us to Sesame World in Philly. We get there, and they had no clue he was on a Make-A-Wish trip, but they were great, and he met Elmo. My wife worked as a nurse at a children's hospital and cared for a 17-year-old cancer patient whose wish was to meet Wiz Khalifa. He showed up and spent the day. My wife said they went on a walk and came back high as balls. She said it was a great day for the boy and his family. He passed away a few weeks later.
Medical professionals. What's the best reaction you've seen from a dad during the birth of his child?
I've been told that my dad's response to my entering this world was, "It's a person."
I was born in the 80s and the ultrasound technology wasn't that great. What my parents didn't know was that instead of one baby, there were two. Our hearts were beating at the same time and they could never really tell the gender, so they thought it was just one baby. So I came out. Then my mum says, "Doc, I still feel pain." And he looks and says, "I see another head." Apparently my father said, "What the frick? Whose baby is that?" And then my sister popped out. They were obviously floored. When I was born, my dad pulled out a Sharpie and drew a star at the bottom of my foot to make sure they didn't lose me.
Fun fact, if you do that to a premature baby, it can leave a permanent tattoo, because the skin isn't done yet. The more you know.
So if I wrote "Made in China" on a preemie baby's foot. I was a C-section baby. A couple of years ago, the topic came up with my parents while drinking. I mentioned that this sounds kind of gross. My father looks me right in the eye and says, "Have you ever seen Alien? It was just like that."
I've seriously threatened my wife with watching the Alien trilogy while she was pregnant. I almost passed out at the first C-section.
We named our eldest daughter Ripley as her ultrasound photo made it look like she would emerge teeth and claws flailing. When I was born, my father, who's a gynecologist himself, came from watching me do my big entrance, or exit depending on how you look at it, and said to my mum, "You're not gonna believe what you just did." I was over 10 pounds at birth. For some reason, when they mentioned that their father was a gynecologist, I imagined him holding up a judge's number rating once the baby came on out of there. I don't know why, other than that his job would make him maybe a little more detached from the emotion of it all. Some more comments to follow.
My uncle was 13 pounds when he was born in the late 1930s. My grandmother was 5'1" tall and he was her first child. That woman had a uterus and a hoo-ha of steel. No other explanation. Apparently she couldn't feel her legs properly for about 3 months afterwards.
I was 11 pounds even. My mom came so close to breaking my dad's arm, they gave her a rolled-up blanket to squeeze instead. Luckily, I was a pretty quick birth, 5 hours, I believe. My dad went to the hospital to visit me and my mum at the time. After hearing a baby's screams so loud you could hear it in the elevator, he turns to the nurse with a silly grin on his face and tells her, "Well, this one has quite the vocal cords. I'm feeling sorry for his parents already." She turns to him and tells him, trying not to laugh,
"You're telling me, it's yours."
My dad missed my birth because he was choking on a sandwich.
Like he was super excited and choked, or just an unfortunate coincidence?
My dad missed my birth because he was buying a lottery ticket one state over. My parents weren't married and I was unplanned, and if my mum is telling the truth, he didn't want me at first and had wanted her to get a termination. It was only until after he held me for the first time that he realized he wanted me. And he's been a very good dad, thankfully. A story comes to mind of a friend who, when his son was born, just started crying hysterically and hugged everyone. The doctor, nurses, he even ran out into the hallway and hugged people visiting other patients. Always makes me smile when I think of it. My friend told me his story. He was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. So he was a little purple when he was born. His mum couldn't see what he looked like. His dad told her, "He looks like a California raisin." I actually had the reverse problem. I was hyperoxygenated and was red. My dad actually said, "Put this one back. She's not done yet."
My husband coddled our first son because I wanted him to have something with his son I could never have. I saw him holding this red, wrinkly, swaddled little baby and said, "Oh, look, they dressed up a potato like Mother Teresa."
My dad is a carpenter and was at work when he was told that my mum was in labor with me. His reaction? He went into a shocked stupor and accidentally shot his thumb with a nail gun. And that's the story of why my then 11-year-old sister had to fill out my birth certificate.
Did she get to name you too?
Be honest, is your name Poohface on your birth certificate?
My friend got to name his little brother, named him Leonardo after a Ninja Turtle.
My birth was both a terrifying and wonderful day at the same time. My mother hemorrhaged pretty badly, so my dad had this turbulent hour in which he was both crying with joy over the birth of his first child and also with terror at the thought of losing his wife. The doctors wouldn't let him back in the room while they were trying to save my mum's life. So apparently for this hour, all he did was pace the hallways outside the room holding me, and refusing to let anyone else near me, as if he was already preparing for it to just be me and him. My dad has never stopped being an utterly devoted and emotional father. To all those who asked, yes, my mother survived. At a forceps delivery last night, the dad-to-be was so horrified and impressed by the amount of pain his wife had gone through during her labor that he phoned up his own mum to say, "Thanks. I'm afraid to ask. Forceps delivery? Baby won't come out easily from the birth canal, so the doctor grabs its head with forceps and helps out. Usually leaves little dents because the baby's head is soft, but those straighten out afterwards. Note, usually straighten out afterwards. Multiple Redditors still retain scars and elongated heads. Thanks for the nightmares, guys. I think I finally decided to never give birth." When I was born after 13 hours of labor, my dad looked at my full head of black hair and blue eyes, looked at my mum and said, "Are you sure she's mine?" My grandfather was the one the nurses let carry me back to my room post-cleanup, and when my mum asked if I was okay, he said, "Yeah, I don't think the extra 2 toes will be a big hindrance," which led to my mum frantically tearing the blankets off to check my toes. Basically, the men in my family are buttholes. My brother was born about a year after me, and my mother had gone into false labor so many times that she only knew she was really in labor when she couldn't sleep that night. Anyways, later at the hospital, the doctor said that she was going to be in labor for a lot longer. So he went and ate dinner. She wasn't in labor for much longer. My grandmother delivered the kid and was holding him when a nurse walks by and says, "You can't do that." My grandmother retorts with, "Well, I'm not going to put it back." That doesn't sound like a very good nurse to me. No, that doesn't sound like a very good nurse. What did she think the grandmother was going to do? I imagine there was a fair bit of shock involved with realizing that a patient's family had delivered the baby instead of the hospital, but still. My father, up until I was born, had not seen a newborn baby, like ever. Naturally, he assumed that all babies look like they do in movies or commercials. As you can imagine, he was quite disappointed when an alien-looking thing is handed to him and introduced to him as his daughter. He handed me back to the doctors and went outside for a smoke to calculate how much all of the plastic surgeries were going to cost. Newborn babies are kind of gross-looking, sticky and covered in baby cheese. Baby cheese? Well, now I'm not finishing the rest of my sub, thanks. My own husband, during my first C-section, the doctor asks if he wants to look over the curtain at the baby being delivered. He looks over. Looks back with a look of horror. "What's wrong?" "Your insides are on your outsides." I will never forget the look on his face or the sound of his voice. "They're ripping you apart," is what my husband said in that exact situation. "They're tearing you apart, Lisa." When my mum gave birth via C-section to my brothers and I, triplets, the doctor asked my dad if he was okay watching the operation. My dad's response, "Oh yeah, it just looks like you're gutting a deer." My mum watched the second C-section, my husband had watched the first, and it fully satisfied his curiosity about where babies come from. She told me later that they hauled everything out, cut out the baby, then according to her, they stuffed you like a turkey to put everything back in. When I was born, they took me off immediately to clean me, take my footprints, bundled me up, and whatnot. I guess the 2 nurses were in a bit of a hurry and were doing both at the same time, and I managed to get a print of my left foot twice instead of a left and a right. Apparently, upon seeing the prints, my father became extremely distressed and literally ripped the blanket off me to make sure I didn't actually have 2 left feet. When my older sister was being born, my dad was in the room. He was so excited to watch that he screamed, "Honey, you gotta see this!" My mum said deadpan, "I'm a bit busy, can I get back to you, dear?" Kind of on topic, my mum said that when she woke up my dad to tell him her water broke, he jumped out of bed and started sweeping. She asked what the frick he was doing and he said, "I have to clean, the baby is coming." "Just imagine what he's gonna think of these floors." "Get out the fine china." According to my parents, I was a super fast delivery. Like so fast that the doctors and nurses had stepped out of the room to go to attend to someone else, and my mum grabbed my dad and told him to get ready to catch me. My dad didn't even have time to put on gloves and had to catch me, baby gunk and all. Apparently he smiled, passed me to the nurses, who came rushing in, kissed my mum on the lips, then leaned over and vommed everywhere. In conclusion, baby gunk and spew. Medical professional here. We were trying to get mum to push for at least 10 seconds with each attempt at getting baby out. So I'm counting down from 10 and ask the dad to join in just as baby's head appears. 10, 9, 7, 4, 7, 3. The guy was so excited and nervous and caught in the moment that he forgot how to count. One of the most precious moments I've gotten to be a part of. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My mum wanted to deliver me naturally, but there were complications. My head was way too big. My mum was still trying to push when the doctor realized he would have to perform an emergency C-section. Apparently, they put the bars up on the side of my mum's bed, rushed her out of the room at full speed, and turned the lights off, leaving my dad stranded alone in a hospital room by himself. He said he didn't know what to do, so he just sat down, still in the dark, and waited for someone to get him. A little over an hour later, a nurse came in to prepare the room, found my dad, and brought him down to the nursery to see me. I laughed so hard just thinking about my father sitting alone, in the dark, in a random room in a hospital while I was being born. My father's son is a very well-educated, well-spoken man. He was with me in the hospital room when I gave birth, and the first thing he said after seeing our son the first time was, "Oh my God, look at his balls. They are huge on a newborn. Now I'm curious, but I don't want to search for baby balls."
Oh, here you go. Attached pictures and hyperlink for educational purposes. Wait, NSA, Prism, frick!
Well, you took one for the team there, pal. My mum went into labor late in the evening. My dad was asleep. He had to work early. She went in and said, "The baby is coming, get up." He replied, "Calm down, it's fine, go have a cold bath." So she had my grandma take her to the hospital. In my dad's defense, if he sleeps as heavily as me, he probably wasn't even awake for this. My biological father was out drinking while I was born. My mum's best friend and the man I consider my father was there the whole time and used to tell me all the time how I could fit in one of his hands. Each time he told me, he looked teary-eyed. I'm curious as to whether this was a small or premature baby, or whether the fine father figure in question was in fact an enormous giant, or whether he was rocking gloves like Uncle Jack from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I was born on Father's Day. Haha, funny story. My dad got tennis rackets and tennis balls as a Father's Day gift, so he was playing with them in the basement, hitting balls against the wall when my mum went into labor. So she yelled at him from the top of the stairs that the baby was coming, and my dad, he says, "Okay, dear, I'll be down here playing tennis." She was livid. I was born in the 80s and my dad was in the operating room. I have a few older brothers who are all born naturally, but bro number 3 did some damage on the way out, so I was born via scheduled C-section, something my parents weren't really used to. My parents didn't know the gender of their new baby, me, ahead of time, so it was going to be a surprise. The surgeon put his hand in my mum's abdomen to reach for me and yelled to the room, "It's a girl," before getting me out. My dad was so excited, he just blurted out, "How can you tell?" And the surgeon looked at him with a sarcastic face and said, "She's wearing earrings." When my dad was born, my grandpa wasn't even there. He was asleep in the lobby of the hospital. The doctor had to go and find him to tell him he was a father. When he came into the delivery room and the doctor showed him my dad, he only had one thing to say.
I thought they were supposed to be cute.
My dad always said I looked like an undercooked lizard. It was a Sunday and my mum was in labor with me. The doctor comes in and asks, "How's it going?" Mum?
Oh, I'm feeling…
"Oh no, the football game. The Bears are playing and how's it going?" My dad? "Up by 7. I was delivered by C-section, but apparently my mum's contractions were so intense that while she was holding my dad's hand, she squeezed so tight that she broke it. Mind you, my dad is 6'4" with huge hands and my mum is only about 5'5". The day I was born, my dad took me down every hall in the hospital and showed me off to everyone who would look. "Look how beautiful my little girl is." My mum said he was gone with me for over an hour.
That is just the sweetest thing. Put a big grin on my face. Look at this beautiful thing that I made.
All by myself. Well, me and my wife, we get to keep it. I was in the OR assisting with a C-section. Dad was there and he passed out and crapped himself. I thought that was pretty fantastic. My dad likes to tell the story of my birth over and over. They knew I would be born early. At 6 months, the doctors realized they couldn't keep me in any longer. They warned my dad that I wouldn't cry because I was so premature. Not only did I come out mad as hell, but I screamed my little head off too. They told my dad that at 2 pounds, I only had a 5% chance of survival. 1973, mind you. I proved them wrong on all counts. My dad broke his back a few days before my mum went into labor with my brother. He was still in the hospital recovering from surgery, not able to walk around yet. My mum went into labor in the same hospital, and my dad demanded for a large enough room for 2 beds and that they wheel his butt down to her room so he could be with her. So my dad was laying in a hospital bed with a broken back right next to my mum when she had my brother. Thankfully not the one that I personally saw, but when my younger cousin was born, they had someone who was still training in the room observing and whatnot. Well, after the birth, she was in charge of taking care of the placenta. It dropped out of her hands and splattered all over the floor. My uncle was so disgusted by it that he fainted. For the birth of my oldest brother, my dad was holding my mum's hand. After he was born, my mum noticed he was still rubbing his hand. She asked him why he was rubbing it, and my dad said, "Well, he was squeezing my hand pretty hard." My mum asks, "Why didn't you tell me I was hurting you?" Dad says, "Well, I figured you were probably in more pain than I was." They've been married for 31 years and they both endured 4 more childbirths. Oh, my dad started freaking out so much when I was born that he stole my mum's oxygen mask for himself. The doctor started yelling at him about how the baby, me, needed the oxygen and had to steal it away from him. An older resident once told me the story about how he was working in New York City in his youth. There was a blizzard and a guy couldn't get his wife to the hospital in time. She gave birth at home and they brought them in to check up on the baby and mother. The dude is obviously in shock from the delivery and keeps saying, "I told him," the baby, "to stay in there. I told him to stay. Not an hour old and he's already stopped listening to me." Cracks me up every time he tells it. I'm just getting a hilarious mental image of this guy screaming, "Stop! Stop!" at his wife's hoo-ha. When I was younger and mad at my parents, I told them that I hoped I was switched at birth because there was no way I could be related to them. My mum said that wasn't possible because my dad literally never let go of me when I was in the hospital. He stayed with me the whole time because he was afraid someone would try to switch their crappy baby with his awesome baby. When my brother was born, his head was like a lemon being shoved out of a birth canal. My dad looked at him, then asked the doctor if his head was going to stay like that. He also wrote my name wrong on the birth certificate. I love my dad. When my sister was born in the 80s, my dad was ill-prepared for what newborns sometimes look like when they come out. Newborn skulls are kind of squishy, so when my sister got squeezed out, her head got a little squished and came out kind of conehead-like. In the delivery room, my dad smiled and said she was beautiful. Then he immediately exited, started crying, and called his friend Mike, a doctor, and said, "I don't know, man, there's something wrong with her. She came out looking like a frickin' hammerhead shark." His buddy had to convince him nothing was wrong and the head would go back to normal. Apparently he kept saying, "But she looks like a fricking hammerhead," over and over again. Dad here. My second child was born with bright, shiny red hair. Neither me nor her mum have red hair. There were about 10 or 15 assorted doctors, interns, nurses, etc. in the room. One of the interns sees the hair and immediately asks, "So, does red hair run in your family?" Every medical professional in the room sucks in a breath. They knew the dangers of asking such a question, probably from previous births. I looked the intern in the eye and said, "Yes, hers and mine." Everyone breathed a collective sigh of relief and immediately went back to what they were doing. Had I been quicker on my feet, I would have said something to the effect of, "No, wait, frick, I knew it," and stormed out while everyone glared evilly at the intern. It would have taught him a lesson. My mum loves to tell the story about my older brother, parents' firstborn kid, being born. They got to the hospital around 2 a.m. and after the initial examination, the doctor said it was going to be a while still and disappeared. An hour or so later, the nurse says it's getting to be time, so she goes to find the doctor and she can't. He's not answering pages or anything. There was a trash can at the foot of the bed, and my dad started freaking out, yelling about his first kid is going to be born straight into a trash can and what a horrible start to life that is. Another nurse calmed him down just in time for the doctor to show up yawning. He'd fallen asleep somewhere and nothing was waking him up. I worked in the local EMS system for about 6 years. In that time, I've become acquainted with a lot of the floor staff. Before my son was born, we arrived at the L&D unit and I was greeted by the staff warmly and excitedly. They made sure that both my then wife and I were treated with the best of care. Fast forward to 40 hours later. She had been in labor for 36 of them. I have not slept at all in that time frame, nor have I eaten. I was too nervous to leave her side, worried that I would miss the birth of my first child. The moment arrives, she's crowning. I'm there holding her hand and being comforting as I can when it hits me like a sack of bricks. Holy crap, you're about to have a kid. You, the irresponsible paramedic. You're about to be responsible for another human being. That played on repeat in my head. As my gorgeous son is delivered, the combination of exhaustion, stress, and hunger took me out. I remember the nurses say, "Wow, he looks really pale. Oh crap!" Then a whiteout and a thud. I waked up to the ED staff and some of my fellow EMS crews and L&D staff standing over me. To this day, I have not yet lived down that I, a 6'1", 300-pound ex-rugby player paramedic, was knocked out by a newborn who was 21 inches long, weighing 7 pounds 11 ounces. I love that story.
Reddit, what is the best comeback that works against all insults? I bet that sounded a lot cooler in your head. Once I saw an Am I the Jerk post where a bride was jealous of a guest because she was too beautiful and, quote, stole her day, even if she was perfectly elegant, and she was insulting her. The bride told her, "So next time, can I come to your wedding in a wedding gown?" The guest replied, "If you think it'll help." And I found that epic. Anytime my mom would get called names or insulted, she'd shrug and just say, "Everybody's gotta be something." I like this one, actually. I feel like it's the least argumentative comeback here. Deflecting people or responding with a witty thing can just rile them up. Source, Psycho Family, as they take it the same way as being ignored. This one gives a sort of illusion that you accept what they've said and they've already moved on from it. Like, I've heard what you said, I've taken it in, and I let it go before the bully even has a chance to process it themselves. I feel like there's still room for reconciliation after this response. It's important to remember the other person in these situations. Not because we should be empathetic towards their abusive choices, but because we should be empathetic towards their lead-up emotions. My 5-year-old says mean things sometimes because he hasn't practiced patience and understanding enough. He's learned how to properly react, but he's not mature enough to utilize it properly every time he gets worked up. And this is not unexpected of a 5-year-old. A lot of people much older than 5 are also similarly emotionally immature. My husband didn't have much practice with patience before he met me. 10 years later, and he's all mellowed out. I'm not perfect, of course, but I am confident in my ability to stay cool in the face of craziness, which helps me remember to think of the other person. When my husband used to get irrationally upset about tiny things and then redirect that upsetness at me, I always considered that he may literally never have had the chance to learn these things before meeting me. He was, emotionally, a 5-year-old. I can't expect greatness until he's had the opportunity to learn how to be great in the first place. Although, I don't put myself through abuse for the sake of another person's learning experience. If I ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable in an abusive situation, I just leave. That's with my 5-year-old and my husband. I always tell my son, "You've got a little body, but huge emotions, so sometimes they spill out a little bit. I don't want you to hurt me and regret it later. As soon as you're done letting those emotions out, I'll come in and hug you. Just yell for me." Then he screams into his pillow or destroys some Lego structures and calls me in to comfort him when he doesn't feel like those emotions are spilling out as much. At the end of his anger outbursts, he always cries in regret for having been angry in the first place. That vulnerability point is where we practice coping mechanisms for his anger. I saw similar emotions in my husband 10 years ago, albeit less obvious. Angry adults are, internally, little 5-year-olds whose emotions are spilling over, and they're scared. Not an excuse, but a shining light onto the anger process in their brains. Not sure where this rant came from today, but here it is. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That sounds like something you would say. Dang, people are right about you. Well, I guess what everyone says about you is true. My dad told me to say this, and the typical bully type will generally go crazy thinking everyone talks about them behind their back. Just say okay and move on. People who insult want a reaction. Don't give it to them. I found out just asking why and putting them in a position to explain their insult which didn't have much thought behind it works well. Pull my earbuds out with a confused expression and ask, "What?" Hold a stare and blank face for at least 3 seconds and then ask in a concerning tone, "Are you okay?" Up your butt and around the corner. Worked when I was 10. Big fan of the pause for a beat, deadpan, and then some variation/combo of, "You done? Feel better now? Got that out of your system?" Just that pause and little bit of patronizing tone while dismissing the childlike behavior usually does more to the ego than a counter-insult. I'm a woman, and my job basically boils down to arguing with attorneys who are mostly men with huge egos and a large helping of disdain for people they deem, quote, beneath them. It's common for them to get pushy, loud, and insulting when they're not getting their way. That was intimidating at first, but now I look forward to it because it gives me an opportunity to use my favorite line. It sounds like you're getting a little emotional about this. Do you want to call me back when you've calmed down so we can get this done? This is always met with a delicious pause, followed by them either hanging up or launching into the most high-pitched screeching you've ever heard. Being called emotional by a woman who is perfectly calm breaks something in them, and it's my favorite thing. Never in my life would I have described an attorney as a, quote, whiny baby type until I worked for a couple. Jesus Christ, you weren't kidding. Attorneys who are mostly men with huge egos and a large helping of disdain for people they deem beneath them? 100% all of this. It was insane. Any woman non-attorney working for them was tasked to be their mom or maid. It was infuriating to see such a caste system in place in current times. They literally would ask you a question and then stop listening halfway through your answer. They'd hire you for one job only to end up getting another job babysitting the admin. Or the poor intern who just wanted to learn tax law was roped into cooking for the entire office. She was not trained to be a caterer, but was expected to be one. She finally just quit because she was tired of being told food service was now her job. It was an insane place to work at, and I think I made it 6 months before I realized working for these people were insane. At one point, I was working on my laptop, authorized, because we were waiting on my new equipment to show up and I had to bring in my personal computer in the meantime. The head partner knew this. His office manager knew this. I had been working about a month on my laptop and no one had an issue with it. One morning, this jerk starts screaming at me how using a personal computer was a security risk and how does he even know that I'm working on work and not personal stuff, etc. The guy was, quote, brilliant at being a lawyer, but couldn't remember a conversation from last week. He changed his mind constantly. We'd start a project only to have him abandon or change it completely the next week. It was insanity. It opened my eyes to what kind of people lawyers actually are. I think the worst part is, commenting on this before, how many people pop up and say how a lot of them are insufferable to work for like the ones I did. Alright, here's the 411. Say some gangsta is dissing your fly girl. You just give him one of these. You're not subscribed to Am I the Genius or Am I the Jerk? Linked in the description below. And like the video while you're at it. TLDR, being in the trades gets you some good practice and comebacks. I'm an electrical apprentice. And when I first started, there was a bit of hazing and teasing from the journeymen. It never got too bad, mostly a lot of talk. One in particular was kinda on me one day, and since he was fairly young, just recently licensed, I just responded like, did someone treat you like this when you were an apprentice? Do you have some unresolved issues? Do you need a hug? Oddly, he never really responded, but I didn't have any trouble with him anymore. On the same job, the excavator accidentally broke our grounding grid. A big underground copper cable grid used to ground all the structures in the substation. So I had to jump down, in the rain, into the hole to patch it up. It was wet and muddy, but I was wearing a full rain suit. Another older journeyman, who was my foreman and had worked for my father more than once, made a sarcastic remark along the lines of, "We should take a picture. Wouldn't your daddy be proud?" I just looked up at him and said, "Well, I'm doing my job, I'm doing it well, and I'm not moaning and complaining about it. Yeah. He likely would be proud." I also had another apprentice yell at me, "Stop talking to me like I'm a freaking moron," to which I responded, "Stop talking to me like you're a freaking moron." I did kind of provoke him, but he was being really dense. And basically takes all the wind out of their sails. They want to get a rise out of you, and responding like this doesn't give them the satisfaction. I once had someone say to me, "Jesus, they let you out for the day and this happens?" I had to laugh and give them that one. Stick your finger in your mouth/cheek and pull it forward and out so that it makes a popping noise. There are many people who wouldn't be speechless after witnessing that during a conversation/argument. Well, that's just like your opinion, man. Just laugh out loud. If someone's trying to make you mad, acting like nothing they've said matters to you in the least and their attempts at making you feel bad are laughable will really take the wind out of their sails. I've done it. It's immensely satisfying. I once got punched in the face by a guy who had started trying to bully me in 7th grade. I don't know why, but I just started laughing. That uncontrollable, this isn't funny and it's not appropriate to laugh right now, but there's no way to stop it type laugh. It wasn't intentional, and I wasn't trying to freak the guy out, but he turned beet red, mumbled that I was a freaking psycho, and stalked away. He wouldn't even make eye contact with me through the end of high school, so that worked out well. I envy the people that don't know you. So's your face. Bold words for a man in white sauce distance. You freaking Americans will use anything except the metric system. There was a female gamer during a live stream, taking crap for some jerk she just beat. Without a pause, she drops, "I'm going to screw your dad tonight and give birth to someone he actually loves." It's easy, guys. Just repeat what they've said back, but in a high-pitched, sarcastic tone. I find it works especially well in customer service when dealing with tricky complaints. I think I know the answer, Mr. Garrison. Shut up, fat boy. Hey, don't call me fat, you Jew. My dad told me to respond to bullying by saying, "Sorry about your family situation," and walk away, looking very sympathetic and sad. Like, you understand, and it's okay. I've caused a few breakdowns for sure. Yeah, well, the jerk store called, and they're running out of you. Just walk away while they're talking. It's probably the rudest thing you can do. Plus, you save your time, and if they call you a coward, smile in evil joy, as you know they'll be thinking about this for the rest of the week. I don't get why that's funny. Can you explain it to me? As soon as they start talking, I was just kidding. I don't actually care what you think. Hit him with the old, "It doesn't matter what you think," like The Rock used to do. You want my comeback? You'd have to wipe it off your mom's teeth, Jimmy Carr. First of all, brush your teeth. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. The anti-comeback is my favorite. A light breeze has more effect on me than someone insulting or bullying me these days. I couldn't tell you what the last 5 or 10 people in my life that tried to publicly humiliate me even looked like. I never looked at them. What they were saying never made me miss a beat in whatever I was doing. They get so mad every time, try to bait me a few times, and then eventually give up. Meanwhile, everyone around me can hear and see what's happening. There's only one person that everyone is witnessing making a fool out of themselves, and it's not me. The no reaction, is the best reaction. I don't even entertain crap talkers, and if anything, let them have their quote, moment, as it gives a decent perspective as to where their heads are at. I moved into a new neighborhood a few years back, and I have no idea what I did to get on one of my neighbor's bad side. I've moved every 18 months of my life since birth, and lived all over the world, and it wasn't until almost 40 that I came across the most vile and disturbed neighbor I've ever had. Shortly after moving in, got invited to a little get-together, and dude was projecting for almost an hour, straight giggling and laughing his butt off the whole time, trying to get a rise out of me. He had spent some time looking me up online and was boasting about things he had found. I'm a former celebrity overseas, and my life is an open book, and I've had a few stalkers in the past. This guy took the prize for the most obsessed and weird. Weirdest interaction I've ever had when first meeting someone, let alone a new neighbor. Thanks to them, I cleaned up my online presence as I am no longer famous, was a long time ago, and don't bother with people younger than me anymore. We would have neighborhood watch meetings, and the guy or his boyfriend would make some snide remarks about my son's attire. I never gave them the time of day, and everyone could see them festering from their weird obsession with being so negative. I'm a pretty self-aware dude, and know if I'm committing a social faux pas, this dude apparently isn't. Let them keep talking without engaging, and it will speak volumes about them versus whatever it is they're accusing or bullying you for. Freaking weirdos. I'd give you a nasty look, but you've already got one. Oh, sweetie. Did that make you feel good? Oh. Just a dead-eye stare that lasts too long. No words. No one likes to screw with crazy. Sudden and overwhelming physical violence! Am I the Genius or Am I the Jerk, and their affiliated parties do not support, endorse, or condone physical violence. The opinions of Reddit users are their own and do not reflect upon the Am I the Genius or Am I the Jerk YouTube channels. Okay, thanks, bye. Well, I never. Good day to you, sir. I said good day! My husband has a bunch of uncles. One uncle is a real piece of crap known for screwing everyone over, but the family still protected him and acted like he was okay. Without going into details, the uncle pulled some dirty, illegal crap when my husband's dad died. Everyone in the family warned us beforehand that he might try to do something. So when he did it, I laid into him, telling him we had been warned he would do it. I told him he was no gentleman, he was a liar and a thief who should be ashamed of himself. He left and went outside and started crying. The thing that hurt him was hearing that his family had warned us. I guess he had no idea how they truly felt about him, and being told he wasn't a gentleman was a deep cut. Where I trained, there was an old joke we used to say. Long-winded, but here you go. A young man goes to the circus on a first date and is sat on the ringside watching the acts when the clowns came in. One clown looked at the young man and steams over to him, getting right in the face. "Screw off! Go on, get out!" Embarrassed, the man leaves his date and leaves the circus. Full of shame and anger, he decides he's never going to be spoken to and belittled like that again. He studies hard, becomes a litigation lawyer, and becomes world famous in his field. He becomes known as the man who wins every case and can make grown men cry with just a withering look, but he can never forget the shame at his treatment from the clown. Many, many years after his initial visit at the circus, he returns, all prepared to get his own back, and finally, his moment arrives. The clowns walk into the ring. The clown immediately spots him and steams right over, getting in his face again. "I told you before, screw off! Go on, get out!" The man stands up, the shame from all those years ago rising in him. He draws a deep breath, looks the clown straight in the eye, and stutters, "Frick off, big nose!" I told you it was long-winded, and also not terribly funny. However, it became the stock response in the workshop whenever someone needed putting in their place with an insult, and never failed to make the workshop laugh. Sidebar, I've been having some trouble trying to find some of the longer ones or the ones that are original because there are 5 comments in a row that just say, "No you, no you, no you, no you, no you." Like, it's funny the first time, and only the first time. I play hockey, and locker rooms can get fun with all sorts of crap talk flying around. My favorite was actually directed at me. I had a headache and nausea, turns out from a concussion in our previous game, and my teammate looked at me and says, "I got a straw in my car." Confused, I say, "A straw?" And mate replies with, "Yeah, so you can suck the heck up and play." Hilariously brutal roast, and all in good fun. My wife normally says to her sister, "Should I build a bridge?" When her sister says, "Why?" she says, "So you can get over it."
Your mother should have eaten you while your bones were still soft.
Hello, 911? Yes, this one, right here. Being a knob won't make yours bigger. There is no single, quote, best comeback that works against all insults, as different insults require different responses depending on the context and the individual involved. However, a general strategy for responding to insults is to avoid reacting emotionally and instead respond calmly and confidently. This can involve using humor to deflect the insult, questioning the validity of the insult, or simply ignoring the insult altogether. Ultimately, the most effective response will depend on the specific situation and the individual involved, and it's important to remember that not all insults require a response. Thanks, ChatGPT. Look them up and down, the whole body, and simply say with disinterest, "You're boring." That will live in their brain rent-free for the next 40 years, guaranteed. For me, racial slurs have never been a trigger. At this point, I've been called all of them due to no one knowing what race I am, and my patience while being insulted either confuses or makes them more angry while I'm just taking verbal abuse. I'm a light brown Thai Asian, but I have the mannerisms and accent, according to my friends of every race, of a white American dude, and my looks do not scream Asian. I think this is evident because my eyes do not have an evident Asian look. As such, I've been confused for Japanese, Chinese, Australian, Burmese, Cuban, Mexican, Brazilian, Iraqi, Afghan, Black, African, Egyptian, French, Scottish, Eskimo. Inuit is correct. Eskimo is a slur. And the most stupid one, Muslim. Yes, a person said I looked like a Muslim, as if it was a race. Of course, the moment I start talking, having a Michigan accent throws off most people angry at me as they either try to comprehend what race I am and what insult to use against me, or most of the time, I bring them back to reality and they're trying to figure out whether it's worth wasting more energy. More, they caught themselves before saying something worse. When someone acted crazy in class, my math teacher would always say something like, "A good doctor will help you to get rid of that." Got bullied in high school by a guy in a couple classes. One day, I finally had enough. Bully. "Man, you're totally gay." Me. "You must be also, since from what I can tell, you're trying to flirt with me every day." Bully's friends start busting up laughing. Me. I guess this is the point where you ask me out. Awkward silence from bully. Him and his group leaves, never to torment me again. I bet you eat corn the long way.
What's the craziest advice someone has given you about your pregnancy? I was about 8 months pregnant. I said something at a family dinner one Sunday about how I was scared of labor. My gram shouts out,
"You know, you should smoke a blunt."
Now, my family's open about their green herb use. Most of my family will smoke from time to time, but my grandmother has never smoked in her life, so I was a bit confused. I just looked at her, and she keeps on going,
"If you smoke blunts well into your labor, it will keep you calm and help the pain. I'll find you some green herb. Just smoke it in the bathroom of the hospital. But wear socks. You have ugly feet, and the doctor won't help you if he sees your cracked heels."
My Grammy sure is something. I didn't take her advice, and the doctor delivered my baby even with my cracked heels. And once I had the baby and could reach my feet again, I made sure they weren't cracked anymore. Got severe itching all over my body during the 7th month. Did the routine test for liver function, all normal. Colleague advises, rub your husband's underwear which he has left for wash or laundry all over your body as a remedy for itching. No, I did not follow that advice. Oh, I was told that I need to shave down there or the baby will get carpet burn. Like, what? I feel like shaving down there would be the thing that gave the baby stubble burn. When I was pregnant past my due date, a co-worker advised me to drink cod liver oil mixed with vodka. Apparently this mixture would upset my digestive system, give me horrible diarrhea, and thus trigger labor contractions. To clarify, I did not drink this combo to help with being overdue. I ended up several days later being medically induced, and the labor delivery was swift and baby healthy. He's a grown man now. That I should drink her crappy MLM aloe vera juice every day. It's not advisable for pregnant women. I knew when I started this story collection that it would be full to bursting with homeopathic crap, and I think we've done quite well to have this be our first story about it, to be honest. My labor should be painless because Jesus died and erased the pain during childbirth, penalty humans got from Eve. If I feel pain, it's because I don't believe in Jesus' redemptive powers.
That's not how that works. That's not how any of that works.
Was told not to drink hot tea because then I would boil my baby. The reasoning for this advice was that the umbilical cord acted as a sort of snorkel from the baby to the mother's navel. If the navel was submerged, the baby wouldn't be able to get air. I had a coworker tell me that eating peanut butter, I was eating an apple with peanut butter on my lunch break, would give my baby cancer. I already thought she was the world's greatest idiot, so that nugget of wisdom was just confirmation.
Don't raise your arms above your head. It will tangle the baby's cord and the baby will die.
I came here having been given this advice as well. Even worse, the kid was born with the cord around his neck and needed to be delivered by C-section for other reasons. I could tell she wanted to say I told you so. Both mine had their cords wrapped and I had 2 C-sections, but cords wrapped aren't really that unusual. But I'm sure she would have loved to I told you so me. She's also the woman that told me she blames her 1970s potty training techniques for her daughter's bipolar. She feels like common practice was abusive and led to all of her daughter's mental health issues. Not to sit on stairs because it will cause you to have a miscarriage. People are crazy. According to my mother, everything can cause a miscarriage. Stairs, the silent killer.
Coffee? Miscarriage. Tea? Miscarriage. Too much meat? Miscarriage. Not enough meat? Miscarriage. Sewing? Miscarriage. Paddling the school canoe? Oh, you'd better believe that's a miscarriage. Had 2 miscarriages before finally having my daughter. Just bad luck chromosomal abnormalities. But she made sure to remind me not to do all those things again next time. You know, just in case. Thanks for the subtle blame, Mom. Not me, but my sister. She had to have an emergency C-section when she had my niece. Her mother-in-law said she wouldn't be a real woman unless she had a natural birth. I was 18 when I had my son and was already terrified. Had to be induced and ended up having to have a C-section because labor just wasn't progressing and his heart rate kept dropping. For the first 1.5 years of my son's life, my mother told me I wasn't a real mom because I had to have a C-section. My mother-in-law said it's okay to drink mixed drinks. She went on to say that my husband was a margarita baby. I now call him that when he gets on my nerves. That is hilarious. It's like, okay, margarita baby, whatever you say.
My mother-in-law. Don't eat spicy foods or stand under the moon. Ugh. It's the full moon, not just the moon in general. This was a decade ago and my memory sucks. The spicy thing comes from the superstition that spicy foods will give your kid a birthmark. On my very first OB visit, first baby, they handed me a book about month-by-month pregnancy and said that if I had any questions, to just refer to the book. Then I said, well, what if the baby… She cut me off right there and pointed to the book and said, it's in the book. I changed OBs. For those who are asking, my question was not in the book. I had questions about the baby being premature. My brother and I were born very premature, and I was going to ask her about it. And my baby ended up being born 3.5 months early, and I had a lot of complications prior to that. Being high risk is not fun. But he's healthy now. Wow, that is complete crap. Imagine if every doctor did that. What an idiot. Walks into doctor's office. Hey doc, I've been feeling nauseous and have had severe stomach pains for some time. Did you check WebMD?
What?
Did you check WebMD?
Nah, I figure…
I can't help people who won't help themselves. Well, seems that in some rare cases, the medical experts can be just as infuriating as the people around us, I guess. But still, folks, 99 times out of 100, listen to the people who've trained in this rather than your crazy homeopathic hippie uncle.
Don't worry about the swelling and high blood pressure, that's normal,
says my midwife days before being induced due to preeclampsia.
Literally a life-threatening condition in some cases. A+ midwifery.
Oh, I've got this. The lady at the counter in the village bakery told me that I should smear my face with my man's splooge to counter pregnancy acne. It was the first time I'd ever met her. In high school, I read an article that said, in complete seriousness, women should give their men BJs every morning because morning sickness is caused by the body not being used to splooge. Younger me earnestly asked our medical teacher that question. Her tiny Christian body just froze. Looking back, it was a horrible idea and I can't believe I asked that. My entire family was super judgmental against breastfeeding for some reason. It was really strange.
How long are you going to do that for?
You're taking the joy of feeding the baby away from everyone, said my mother when I was breastfeeding. She came around though and ended up getting judgy about women who choose to formula feed. I'm not judgy, by the way.
My mother-in-law said the same thing. She said I was preventing her son, my husband, from being a dad because I breastfed. Apparently the zillion other things he did as a parent besides feed her didn't make him a dad. What a nut.
I'm in my 30s. When we had our kids, my mum kept telling me how when I was a baby, I was fed exclusively on formula because she was told by her doctors it was the best. She kept saying it, almost, but not quite, judging us for breastfeeding our own children.
I honestly hear that from a lot of people our age. I'm just shy of 33.
I wonder if there was a formula marketing shift in that time period.
It's actually a real problem. 2 generations of women were convinced through false advertising that formula was safer and healthier. This led to a loss of cultural knowledge on breastfeeding. My in-laws were fully supportive of my breastfeeding until my baby reached 6 months old. Then it went from, "You're doing the best thing for him," to, "When are you weaning?" It doesn't expire, jeez.
Ooh, I get to vent. My 4-month-old has a cold and last week he was really fussy and wouldn't take a bottle at daycare. Until then, he'd been going back and forth between breast and bottle just fine. The daycare provider asked if I was still breastfeeding and if so, could I stop so he'd take a bottle better? No. He's back to normal now. I didn't fight to breastfeed through mastitis and a gigantic mother-fricking abscess just to quit at her convenience. Bottles are fine, but we like breastfeeding too. My grandmother made a comment about my weight gain with my first pregnancy around month 5. For reference, I started severely underweight at 87 pounds and was closely monitored by my doctor because of it. At this point, I was nearing 125. When I told her that the obstetrician gynecologist was happy with where I was, she told me of her own doctor's advice in 1956. Smoke a packet of cigarettes per day to keep your weight down. The baby can gain its own weight after birth. Thanks but no thanks, Grandma. One person told me I would never be able to fit a baby out of my body because I wasn't big enough down there, and to just get a C-section. Not a doctor. A random person who had literally never seen down there. No, I'm not going to get major surgery just because you don't think I'm large enough. I've had 2 successful natural births. My mom's a petite woman, and she naturally gave birth to my brother, who was really close to 10 pounds. They became quite the attraction in the hospital, as people saw the monster baby, checked the room number, then saw my mom and wondered how the heck he got out of her.
Pretty sure my mother-in-law had the same thing happen. My husband was a 10-pound baby with the widest shoulders on record at his hospital. That butthole neglected to tell me this until we were married. I have the sudden urge to shake my snoring boyfriend awake and demand every single one of his birth stats, shoulder width included.
Are you me? This is literally the story of me. My mom barely comes up to my shoulder. I was 10 pounds, 6 ounces, and nurses stopped by for like 36 hours to see the tiny woman who gave birth to the Thanksgiving turkey. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. While pregnant with me, my mum was told that drinking beer would help her baby develop and be nice and chubby. I was 5 weeks early and barely 6 pounds. It could have been substantially worse. Apart from being a really small baby, I didn't have any fetal alcohol-related health conditions. Conversely, when my grandma was pregnant with my mum, her first, in the 50s, the accepted wisdom was that smoking while pregnant was a good idea for first-time mothers, because it lowered their birth rate, which was supposed to make labor and delivery easier. But low birth weight is extremely dangerous and makes the process harder. My mum was born 2 months early and weighed about 2 or 3 pounds. She was so tiny that my grandma dressed her in baby doll clothing and my mum spent her first month of life in the hospital's NICU.
That's insane. I wonder what medical knowledge that's commonly accepted today will turn out in the future to have been disastrously wrong.
That if you try really hard and stretch a lot, you too can have a natural birth. Not actually a bad plan, as long as you don't wind up not fricking dilating after 30 hours and have an emergency C-section due to fetal distress. Because I just didn't try hard and stretch enough. Taking a bath can cause a miscarriage. To be fair, it was from my husband's incredibly sweet grandmother who meant well. She was 92 years old at the time and hadn't been pregnant in a very, very long time. She also had a good number of miscarriages. My father-in-law and his sister are 15 years apart in age, so I think she was coming from a different place than most. One of my work colleagues was obsessed with recommending that I eat citrus fruits, especially the easy-to-peel cutie tangerines. She was convinced that it would give the baby a higher IQ in the long run. So not really about pregnancy advice, but someone told me to put baking soda in a cup and pee on it first thing in the morning. If it fizzed, I was pregnant with a boy. If it did not fizz, I was having a girl. If it didn't involve literal baking soda, this sounds like some of the kind of medieval tests people would conduct on themselves way back when. Like peeing on a potted seedling and its growth determining whether you're fertile or not. Silly idiots. When I found out I was pregnant a 4th time, 3 losses in a row, I heard so many from strangers. Mine isn't necessarily advice, but more open mouth insert foot.
Are you sure this one's gonna work?
I was also told that if I was on my cell phone or around my modem or router, it would cause brain damage to my unborn child. She's 4, perfectly healthy, no brain damage, and let's just say it took a lot of medical attention to get her to full term. What caused my miscarriages? They said my hormones couldn't sustain a pregnancy, and after the 3rd, I was told that with my hormone levels, getting pregnant again wouldn't happen. She was a surprise and the best one ever. It took an educated doctor that wanted the best outcome. Previous doctors just looked at my history and was like, sorry for your loss, maybe next time will go better. The best day of my husband and mine's life was finding out that she was alive, thriving, and having an amazing doctor who moved heaven and earth to make sure she'd make it. He was at work when I found out, and he actually yelled and his entire office heard him. He almost ran out of the office, he was more excited than me. Sitting with my legs crossed will cause a miscarriage. Don't take a bath, it'll cause a miscarriage. Lifting more than 5 pounds will cause a miscarriage. Wearing tight-fitted clothes? You guessed it, miscarriage. Spicy food could cause a miscarriage. I worked retail. A stranger informed me that morning sickness and smell sensitivity isn't real while I was heading to the bathroom to throw up. Also had a customer tell me that the baby isn't actually affecting my bladder. Had a 3rd customer tell me not to drink tap water. Can't remember why, probably causes miscarriages. My cousin tried to tell me that I had morning sickness because it's God's way of telling a woman she isn't ready for a baby. Had an anterior placenta, so we couldn't feel kicks until close to 30 weeks. My mum said there was no such thing and the reason we couldn't feel kicks is because I was fat. In conclusion, literally everything causes miscarriages and morning sickness is a lie. When I found out I was pregnant, a nurse friend of mine felt the need to rattle off an endless list of crap that could potentially be wrong with my baby. Another friend of mine, when I started telling people that I was pregnant after the 3 months and was accused of telling people too early, said, "It doesn't matter when you tell people, you could have a miscarriage at any point during your pregnancy." They both meant well, but really, guys, just shut up. My grandma constantly told me not to argue with my husband because it would cause the baby to be fussy and difficult. Frozen cabbage leaves in the bra to help with swelling and pain due to breastfeeding. While it did feel awesome for the whole minute or so that they stayed frozen, they eventually turned to mush and made a mess. Advice I wish someone had given me: get a mattress protector, not just for when your water breaks. Carrying a big baby next to your bladder means the act of rolling over in a bed can cause leakage. And if you're too tired after the birth to take the baby to a changing table or the floor, you're going to want a layer of protection on your mattress. Soon as that diaper is off, the baby will projectile poop. Sheets and walls can be washed, but mattresses can't. Poop explosions are real. Prepare yourselves. Now I want to add a really good mattress cover or pad to my registry. And make sure you register for 2. When the baby pees all over the bed at 1 a.m. or your milk leaks everywhere in the middle of your night, you need a backup mattress protector for when the first one is getting washed. My mum was talking to my paternal grandma while pregnant with me, then winced because I was kicking her ribs. My grandma told her to swat it so it'll know. She wanted my mum to spank fetus me through her own belly for kicking her. After my mum told us that story, swat it so it'll know became a common response anytime someone was complaining about something. Well, I'm the husband and father, but a doctor told my 38 or 39-week pregnant wife that her condition was no excuse to not keep me satisfied in the bedroom. Not even sure why it was brought up. She was just getting a regular checkup. I wasn't even there. The doc busts out with this. Not her regular doctor. Her regular doctor was also off pregnant. She was not impressed, to say the least. So there's the advice. Being pregnant is no reason to not please your significant other. Did you pass along that helpful advice to her regular doctor? I'm sure she would have been delighted to hear that a colleague was dispensing pearls of wisdom like that. She did, actually, along with a letter to the head of medicine due to another incident. This was a new doctor and actually still on probation now. With my first baby, I had a random lady in a grocery store tell me to take a bath in bleach because it's good for the skin and for the baby's growth and development. I was mortified. I was told that heartburn during pregnancy meant that the child had a lot of head hair, had a crap load of heartburn, and kid had barely any hair. "Oh, don't go swimming or the baby will drown," 25-year-old co-worker. All I could picture is the little nugget with a straw out of my hoo-ha to breathe. My friend's dad was a chiropractor. She told him that I'd had miscarriages. He told me, "No wonder, you'll lose every pregnancy with a pelvis like that." Freaked me out so much, and I guess I ruined the party by crying and leaving, and my friend was mad at me. I have back trouble, yes, but I have 3 children living. My adorable father-in-law told me I had to deliver naturally. If I had C-section, I wouldn't love my baby as much because I didn't suffer for him. First of all, the kid was comfortably sitting and was not turning around, you utter butthole. I was not about to risk my kid's life in a feet-first delivery, no sir. Second, a C-section is a major surgery and a pain in the butt, believe me. I did suffer. You try being cut open like that while awake and then deal with a feisty, colicky newborn while recovering from it. Third, really? I need to feel pain in order to love my child? I can't even. Fourth, you don't even have a uterus, old man. Zip it. Ah, that felt good. Not allowed to sew either using sewing machine or by hand. It will cause the umbilical cord to tangle. Just because you almost died carrying that one, don't let it stop you from having another one because all pregnancies are different. Okay then, I could potentially have 2 motherless children. Sounds like something a responsible adult should do. I had extremely high blood pressure and the placenta dropped so low the doctor said just bending over would cause a problem. They couldn't see the bottom on ultrasound and had to use the wand. I had such bad morning sickness, and then when that was done, I had acid reflux so bad I was throwing up 3 to 10 times a day. I didn't gain any weight my whole pregnancy and couldn't eat. Doctor said just the elevation in blood pressure alone was reason enough to never do it again. Currently pregnant and currently dealing with my mother who became an anti-vaxxer 13 years ago. Just found out recently when I mentioned I got my Tdap and flu shot and I asked if everyone in the family was caught up because the baby is due next month and the flu season is right around the corner. She called me a freaking idiot for putting rotting DNA in my body while pregnant. She refuses to get a flu shot, so I refuse to let her see her first grandchild. not taking chances with my kid's life because you can't be bothered to do legitimate research or listen to me when I try and explain it to you. What's the most cringeworthy way someone has tried to show you they were quirky? I had a coworker in a retail environment who was always going on to us about how special he was and how he saw the world differently than the rest of us slobs because he was a writer. Customer with lazy eye comes up to the register. Coworker to customer, "Hey, I see you've got a lazy eye. I notice things like that because I'm a writer." Super awkward checkout ensued. "I notice things like that because I'm a writer." I couldn't help but read that in Ralph Wiggum's voice. My uncles are both published writers. One of them is the most humble guy you could ever meet. The other is so fricking egotistical. I mean, he's clever and very smart, but he makes everything about himself. He can't stand to be wrong. He practically had a fit when my 15-year-old brother beat him in a pull-up contest, and he's like in his late 50s. He doesn't wear glasses despite really needing them because he doesn't want to look old. Regularly almost crashes and puts his children at real risk because of his vanity. I knew a girl in high school who used to diagnose herself with mental illness based on, to the best of my knowledge, Year 11 psychology class and online quizzes. She would also try to one-up anyone who had a legitimate, medically diagnosed mental illness, despite having, in her words, major depression, anxiety, OCD, bulimia, Munchausen's, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. She refused point-blank to ever see a doctor and have any one of these diagnoses confirmed or treated. If you're going to fake mental illness, you might as well do something unique like Morgellons, narcolepsy, Alice in Wonderland syndrome, or if you were really committed, trichotillomania. Lame. I knew a girl who fakes sneezes when she walks outside. She found out only 25% of people sneeze when they see bright sunlight, so she wanted to be part of a minority. I have no idea why she does this, but her fake sneeze is this loud, rough, manly-sounding thing. It's comical how different it is to her real sneeze. Wait, sun sneezes are a minority? I had no idea. It's a genetic quirk. I didn't realize it was weird growing up because my entire family did it, except my mom. I was confused when I found out other kids don't have to sneeze when it was sunny outside. We had a girl that would have an uncontrollably loud hiccup at the most inappropriate times. Moment of silence during the Memorial Day thing, concerts, you name it. Anytime there was silence, she just had to get everyone to look at her. My hiccups end with a burp and I hate them. A subteacher in 3rd grade really ripped on me for them. I mean, this just sounds like the oral version of what my butt seems to want to do at the most inopportune and public moments, so the inappropriate hiccups has my sympathy. A guy I went to high school with was convinced he was a vampire, and once he actually bit my friend during class because he couldn't help himself. A person bit me once, at a party. It was unexpected. I just reflexively hit her in the face while her teeth were still on me. Maybe I tried to push her off me, maybe I tried to hit her so she let go. I'm honestly not sure, but I do know I didn't think about it first. She got a bloody nose. I had bite marks on my shoulder. She said, "What the frick?" I said, "What the frick to you? What are you doing?" She said, "You frickin' hit me. What's the matter with you?" I said, "Me? You fricking bit me. The frick is the matter with you?" She said it was cute when she does stuff like that and that I was some kind of woman-hitting psycho. I was asked to leave the party and most definitely did. 15 years later, still one of the strangest experiences of my life. She brought a fricking ukulele everywhere. At first you'd think, wow, a cute girl with a ukulele, I bet she's really cool, but you'd be falling into her trap. She barely knew 2 chords and was a complete moron. I knew a lady like this where in high school people would be like, "Sweet, can you play me a song?" causing her to snap, "No," at them and have people just be confused. I had a hipster neighbor who would strum his ukulele and smoke his pipe outside while his kids rode bikes. Oh, that's so wholesome. Just a dude chilling while looking out for his kids. This girl I know constantly talks up how much she loves nerdy things like no other girl is into. Nerdy things like Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and Lord of the Rings. Yep, very unpopular entertainment no other girl is into. Her name was Trinity. She said she had multiple personalities, 3 to be exact. She was lying. I asked her parents, they had no clue what I was talking about. He'd wear a paper Krispy Kreme sailor hat every day. I saw bullies rip his hat to shreds and he'd just reach into his roller backpack and pull out another one. Never saw him without it. What a frickin' power move though. The fact that he pulled one out of his backpack is big wang energy.
The fact that his backpack rolled is even bigger wang energy.
Friend of mine went through a super proud to be Italian phase about the time Sopranos aired. He refused to eat his mum's cooking one night because it was too Irish. There were many other things he'd do to try and convey a mob connection. He was part Irish and eventually became a cop. What kind of Italian refuses his mama's cooking? What kind of Italian survives refusing his mama's cooking? A non-Italian. This one guy would put blue Powerade in a Windex bottle and spend the day taking it out of his backpack and squirting it in his mouth. High school. There were plenty of other things, but this one stands out.
Isn't that a scene from Scrubs? I kind of remember the janitor doing that to freak out JD in one episode.
Had a class with a guy that wanted people to think he was a nerd. I guess to him, nerds wear large glasses. Only problem was he didn't need glasses. He started showing up to class wearing 3D glasses from the movie theater with the lenses popped out.
My first thought was, why would someone wear cardstock paper glasses with the red and blue cellophane ripped out?
It took me reading your comment to realize or remember that's not what they give out anymore.
This guy in my high school would wear cat ears and carry a stuffed bunny around. I think he was trying to look like an anime character or something. Anyway, the most cringeworthy part, he would constantly meow in class. Not like meow, but more like yeah, like an anime cat or whatever.
My oldest kid is on the spectrum, and I've had to monitor and restrict his interest in anime because when he watched too much of it, he would start having inappropriate and stylized reactions that were super off-putting. Like in anime, apparently when a girl they like approaches, they sometimes do a freeze frame type of the character freaking out that has their arms and legs all stretched out in midair, making a horrible noise. Now, picture a 13-year-old leaping up and hollering in Dollarama because a pretty girl came into the aisle. Sorry, kiddo, humans don't actually do that, you're cut off again.
You should let him binge Arrested Development and see what he comes up with. Yes, let him learn from Tobias, Buster, and George Michael Maharis how to behave around women.
Look, if I can watch a real kid who is any one of those 3 characters from Arrested Development, my life will be that bit better. And it can't be that different to my friends and I just constantly quoting it to each other all the time. Advise an anime club in my high school and I fricking hate these kids. I got a call from the front office one day. I was told to get my butt down there and stop whatever was going on in front of the office. I run over there and see one of the girls, ears and tail on, is crawling around on the ground rubbing on people's legs. I told her to get up and she hissed at me. I literally had to write her up for hissing at me. Same group made up their own Naruto village. Many asked what I did to deserve this. When it began 11 years ago, it was a group of kids who needed a place to be. They had a hard time making friends and getting a hold of anime was hard. I started it to give them a place to belong and hopefully teach them about the line between fan and obnoxious. Hundreds of kids have passed through it and had a better time in high school for it. Then there are those who don't want friendship, they just want attention, at any price.
I love how this happened and the solution was, I don't know, call whoever advises the anime club, they'll know what to do.
Damn it, we've got cat girls in the lobby, call the weeb wrangler. Imagine birthing a kid and raising it for 15 years for it to amount to that.
Teenagers are inherently dumb and weird. What's worse is that there was a guy that came into the nightclub I worked in with a trench coat, cat ear headband, tail, and cat eye or red contact lenses. At 25 plus years old, it's time to outgrow that phrase. I'm all for self-expression, but there's a line between it and ostracizing yourself from society.
The receptionist at the sign-in desk I do my clinical for school at is normal while back at work, but once she gets home, she literally changes into her goth style. I mean the super pale foundation, black lipstick, crazy eyeliner and eyebrows, piercings, she still wears trip pants occasionally, crazy tutus, black fingerless gloves, and she has a freaking pet crow named Malice and 3 black cats. She's into witch or Wiccan crystals, and she believes that they have healing powers, if that makes sense. And she takes her acceptable for work wig off and rocks a purple faux hawk, her actual hair. I didn't believe her until she showed me pictures. I thought she was hazing me because I was the new kid. I was bewildered. That's how you be your weird self without shame and without letting it ruin your social or professional life. The kind of people who proudly say they are a butthole. It annoys me so much. A girl I used to hang out occasionally liked to pretend she was some kind of bad biker B-word. She talked about riding every chance she got. She showed people pictures and dressed the part. I'd always hit her up when I was going riding to see if she wanted to come along. It gets old being the only woman around. She'd always have an excuse and claimed not to ride if it had rained that week and so on and so forth. Would always give me heck about getting a real bike. I ride a CRB 1000RR and she had an 883 Sportster. She was once complaining to me that she only got her baby out 3 times that year. Which, you base your entire identity on something you do 3 times a year?
Ah, gotcha. One of those Harley people.
There's 2 types of Harley owners. The ones that are like, hell yeah, motorcycles, and the ones that are like, Harleys are the only motorcycle. Saw this kid in a class who would always try to walk like Captain Jack Sparrow. Anybody who wears those fricking normal people scare me shirts. Jeez. Normal people scare me, people scare me. About 10 years ago, around 2009 or 2010 or so,
I'm into some pretty underground, obscure music.
Oh really? That's cool. What kind of bands?
Korn, Avenged, Sevenfold, Metallica. What? I'm convinced some teenagers go out of their way to feel persecuted so they can find an identity to call their own. Because good gosh, that's almost as funny as the one girl who seriously, unironically claimed that the Offspring and Green Day red jumpsuit apparatus were hardcore punk. More so annoying than cringeworthy, but people who pretend to have a mental illness because they think it makes them unique. Those Funko Pops and not being perfectly lined up triggers my OCD so hard.
Nope, you like things to be orderly, totally normal. Having to check the light switch 20 times to the level that you end up being late for things, that's more what OCD is. Yeah, I never really knew what OCD was really until someone told me about it. He said he always has to hit the ground twice when he picks up something he dropped and pick up a pen 3 times and crap. Sucks. Oh crap, probably everything I did in high school. I've just repressed the whole 4 years.
Same. I embarrassingly strove to be a manic pixie dream girl. Ugh.
If you can't look back on the things you did when you were younger and cringe, then you haven't matured. Had a girl in my high school who legitimately believed she was an anime girl and was just born in the wrong body. She would listen to these subliminal "become an anime girl" YouTube videos, end everyone's name in san, wore a schoolgirl outfit every day, I went to a public school, and would sometimes say random Japanese words or phrases because her brain wasn't fully accumulated to America. Needless to say, she was a fully white girl from the Midwest.
I love these because the people who act like this have absolutely no idea how Japan really is.
Anyone else noticing the overrepresentation of anime kids in this topic? Apparently it's a way of making yourself very memorable, to say the least. Actually, all the ones I knew in school were fine.
I thought I was hot stuff because I didn't like reading. I kinda regret that now.
My daughter, a bright, wonderful, hilarious mum of 2 and wife, has the best friend that goes around bragging to people how she never reads anything more challenging than a copy of US Magazine. She finds at the hairdresser. The friend is 42, and frankly, we're less than thrilled they've been friends for 20 plus years. Before I get judgy comments, there is a ton of other crap I'm leaving out. She's any parent's basic definition of a bad influence. The no reading thing would be 50% easier to swallow if the friend didn't insist on injecting her opinion on a wide variety of world affairs, politics, entertainment, etc. To paint a picture, I'm 100% not making this up. Her life's ambition is to become a for real housewife. She'll marry anyone and move anywhere to get on reality TV. She actually went to Miami from Northern California on vacation to specifically go to a club that was depicted in the Real Wives of Miami Beach episode just to go to that club, and was turned away at the door, and had the unmitigated gall to do the "Do you know who I am?" at the doorman. I'm acquainted with someone who will pack her cat in a carrier, drive to the local university, no small feat considering the parking situation and 40,000 students, and push the cat around the quad in an antique baby carriage. All the while she'll make exasperated social media posts about how rude people are to stare at her or talk to her. As far as I know, she doesn't walk the cat around her own quiet residential area.
A little unrelated, but there was this old guy that would walk his dog around on campus last year. Big loping golden retriever that was so friendly and sweet. The dog's owner was also really kind. I got to talking to him one day, and he revealed he likes walking on campus because the kids there tend to miss their own dogs back at home, and he likes causing a little happiness in his daily routine. Switched schools this year, so I haven't seen them. I miss you, Bella.
People that repost those cringy,
"I'm not a B-word, I'm just honest, wink,"
posts multiple times a day to Facebook while reaffirming the post in the text comment above, saying how much the post is,
"Yep, oh, it's so me."
Cringe.
My eyes change color in the sunlight.
Also,
My eyes change color with the seasons.
wow, who knew different types of lighting based on the weather could affect what color things are seen as? I hate to be mean, but there was this girl in a couple of my classes in college who told the professors that she wanted to be called Oracle instead of her real name. You could see the cringe in the professor's eyes and feel the awkward tension all over.
About once every quarter, this happens to me. I'm not like everybody else.
Followed directly by being exactly like everyone else. It's 2005 Hot Topic all over again. I adopted an RP accent in high school. I already had a bit of a posh voice from going to elocution lessons, but I went full 19th century British aristocrat sometimes. I went to school in regional Australia too. Also, I bought a pocket watch to look posh. I do actually like pocket watches, but I knew why I did it. Girls who say they only hang out with boys because it's less drama. Read,
no one puts up with my crap anymore and I don't play well with others.
The scene. German class. The teacher was someone who escaped the DDR, East Germany, when she was young. The actor, an obese guy with a neckbeard, skinny jeans, and pink shoes who said, "Oh, you're from East Germany? I'm a communist too." I'm so glad he dropped the class. The dysfunctional veteran gear. I hate that crap so much, typically worn by a guy that maybe got through basic before they were separated or kicked out for underage drinking. I'll see guys in my classes wearing it, always talking about crap that has nothing to do with the class I'm taking. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking, I get it, dude, now shut the frick up and let the professor get back to the lesson plan. I know someone that is a habitual funeral goer. Anytime someone remotely affiliated with them passes, especially in the town we live in, they are all over social media proclaiming how devastated they are and how close they were to the person. More annoying is repeating the same story over and over about their one interaction with them or whatever. Like tries to get super close with the family at the time and then trails off after the hype from the death is over. People who wear cute but psycho shirts. At least it's one way to know who to avoid, I guess. I was talking to a classmate on the bus and she hauled out her sketchbook to show me her original character, which was
a bear that vomits corpses.
She related all of this to me in a very loud and carrying voice. Tim, who in 2007 dressed like he was hosting a Nickelodeon game show in 1994, was always around. He thought it was shtick, but he would flip your words around on you. The Yankees are your team, huh? What do you, own the Yankees? Did not stop. Finally, someone asked if he was 7 years old and knew how to talk like an adult. Tim then disappeared faster than Drax at the end of Infinity War. 12 years and I haven't seen him since.
Bumper stickers. Lots and lots of bumper stickers. If I see more than 2 to 3 on a car, like, okay, you support a political candidate and love your Doberman, cool, I just assume the person driving it is insufferable. If they're that insistent on sharing their opinions in public to strangers, imagine how they are privately. I once saw a car with so many bumper stickers it covered the entire trunk and back window. Not sure how that's not illegal, but either way, I was embarrassed for them. I went to college with a girl whose car, front, hood, sides, roof and back were all bumper stickers. There were so many you almost couldn't tell the car was silver. There were like 13 different versions of this coexist sticker, then a ton for Planned Parenthood, lots of anti-Trump stuff, lots of Black Lives Matter stickers, Pride stickers, etc. Which, hey, cool if you support or don't support stuff. But fricking hell, she was the worst. Just at everything. She was insufferable. If you didn't agree with every single thing she did or said, it was a personal attack on her, and she had to tell everyone you were a right-wing extremist, or a stalker, or a misogynist, etc. She mooched homework answers from everyone, and if you wouldn't help her, suddenly you victimized her somehow. She couldn't hold a single conversation without making it political or announcing she was a vegan, or she hated X, Y, or Z. She was the most annoying person I've ever met. Sometimes I see that car in town and I just cringe. I knew a girl who wanted to be a manic pixie dream girl type. After some exposure to her, I realized that meant she was flaky, had erratic behavior, and displayed some traits that implied she was mentally ill. I'm so happy she's out of my life. When people say they only listen to The Greatest Showman, or that the only type of music they like is The Greatest Showman. 1, that's not something to brag about, and 2, that doesn't make you special. A lot of people like that movie.
Everyone who has now started using "one life to live" or this, hashtag #OL2L, as their new YOLO life motto. Divorced your husband? OL2L. Fricked the hot Brazilian dude at work who's engaged? OL2L. Going to take a crap? OL2L. Put a pic of the coffee you're drinking in a very hipster area on Instagram? Hashtag OL2L. Don't use a hashtag or weird life motto to be a different kind of butthole. You'll always be a butthole. My ex was a one-upper and always had to play the devil's advocate or bring attention to himself. He was a self-proclaimed anarchist. He carried several knives on him and only drank coffee. Claimed smoking helped his ADHD. Invalidated everything I said when I just needed to vent about something. Always making fun of people, rudely in public, and yelled at me for being embarrassed. Refused to get a job because he didn't want to work for the man. Was absolutely convinced the FBI would break into our house and haul us off to camps. What he won't tell you, I worked in a crappy retail job to pay for our rent. I did the grocery shopping and cooking, he used food stamps, and he used all of his school money on bug-out bag gear. Oh, and the real reason he didn't drive was because his license was suspended, not because he didn't want to drive. 24-year-old me was a fricking idiot. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.